The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.
You want to begin? It is now 6:25.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is 6:25, and we're here for a public hearing on 38-23 North Central Mass Launch LLC, doing business as Launch Leominster, who requested a bowling alley license for Launch Leominster, 118 Commercial Road. This was on our last agenda, and we gave it a public hearing for this evening. Just to get everybody caught up, we had the application that was filed, and everything seemed to be in order except for, we were informed that there is a bowling alley located in the, or lanes, bowling lanes located in Launch, which required a licensing from this committee, and you had already opened, so that was our reason for bringing you in here. So if Mr. Emmer, if you would introduce yourself to the council, please.
Sure.
Mark Emma, my wife and I opened Launch Leominster.
No.
Excuse me, sir, could you put your mic, there you go.
Red light should be on.
There's no red light, but
you're
is that
good.
okay?
And now it's on.
Mark Emma, my wife and I opened Launch Leominster on, we officially opened our doors on March 18th. I guess perhaps my apologies for not coming in front of you for a bowling license. I was not aware that was a requirement of the city. After being in here and talking to inspectors and licenses commissions and everybody else, nobody had brought to our attention that we needed a bowling license. That's why it happened post-opening. We were just unaware.
Okay.
So I apologize for that.
But you were granted your use and occupancy from the city?
Yes.
Everything was set to go?
Yes. Yes.
And I have to say that we've heard rave reviews so far.
I'm glad to hear that. We're
Can
doing
you-
our best.
Can you tell us a little bit about your launch and what activities you have there?
Sure. It's a family entertainment park. It is really designed to be a safe, fun environment for the whole family. It's not just for little kids, not just for big kids. We're trying to provide an outlet for the community and somewhere, like I said, where we could have that safe, fun environment. And we did that by, we have a full restaurant based around a pizza menu in there. We have a liquor license, and it's a full liquor license. And we also have the 8 lanes of bowling. And that's kind of on the right side of the building as you walk in. It's kind of a flow, it keeps everything to that side. Down the middle of the building, we have 27 game arcades. We have a virtual reality pod, which is a giant room, if you will, almost, where you kind of step into the game. It's kind of a neat thing. In the back, we have something called XP Arena, which is an obstacle course type of attraction. There's 13 different little stations where the kids run around and they try to collect points based on touching an RFID wristband to a certain color light. And all of those points accumulate and get registered to the wristband, and then you can come up to the front and redeem those points for gifts and prizes at the redemption counter. In addition, we have what's called our jump floor. That's the where the trampolines are located. And we have up there a fair amount of the left, maybe fifth of the building is the jump floor. There's trampolines, there's something called a launch pad, which is a giant stunt airbag where they can jump on a trampoline. The kids can jump on a and adults, by the way. Everything in here is completely usable by adults as well. You jump off the trampoline into the launch bag. There's a balance beam. There's a kind of a log roll thing. Again, all on above airbags. And then we have dodgeball on trampolines. And we have 3 lanes of ninja course. If you've seen it's a kind of a scaled down version of what you might see on that American Ninja Warrior course. It's different levels. And then a little mini warp wall in the back.
Nice. How has business been since you opened?
I guess, so this is a franchise, and thank you to the city of Leominster, first of all. When I first approached them, it's background story, but it gets exactly to your point, so please. When I first approached them about this area and told them it was underserved, the headquarters of Launch is in Warwick, Rhode Island. There are 36 of them now with 3 more opening. They're all over the country. There happens to be 5 in Massachusetts. That's where they're most populated. And they were hesitant, and they didn't think our area was going to support a launch. And I said, you're wrong. I said, this area is underserved. Things have been leaving for so many years. This community is starving for something like this. And the first launch opened in 2012. And our grand opening week and our grand opening weekend, we actually set an all-time sales record for the entire franchise ever.
Excellent.
So the community has been great. They've been well behind us, and we've been doing our best to try to iron out those bugs as we go along.
Okay. Thank you. As I reported earlier, we have your information here. Our main question that arose was because when we were informed that there was the bowling alley, and that's one of the things that we have to do, and it's actually not just through the city of Leominster, it's a state law that it has to go through, so that's why we had to have you in here. I'm going to open it up to other members of my committee if they have any questions. Councilor Ardinger.
Thank you. I'm really kind of perplexed, to be honest with you. I mean, this is something that we definitely need in Leominster. My grandchildren tell me it's not as good as Apex, but it's a lot smaller environment. But anyway, when you fill out the application, there's nothing on that application that said you needed a license for a bowling alley?
We didn't see anything that we needed a bowling alley. It really kind of surprised me when I found out. I got the initial letter in the mail.
Yeah. No, I've-
That said that we were being informed by, I assume the council, that we were operating a bowling alley without being properly licensed, and I was very surprised. Like I said, with the amount of time we were in and out of here for every, step of the way, it, for whatever reason, never came up, so.
well, I apologize from our perspective for having to, put you through this, session all again.
That's
but,
okay. It's one more
but
step.
I want to thank you and your wife for opening this up in Leominster.
Yeah,
So,
thank you. You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Counselor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Emma, for coming down. And, I can understand how that would be an oversight. It's unfortunate, as the counselor across from me said, that there's, no indication that that would be required on your business application. So thank you very much for coming down and explaining that to us. And my grandchildren, who live in Leominster, absolutely love it. They're 5 and 2, so it's the perfect place. And my daughter, and my son-in-law are really happy that it's so close by.
That's
So,
great.
yeah, so thank you very much. We are underserved, and the kids are loving it, what I've heard, so thank you.
We just opened, for your information, we just initiated a toddler time on Fridays. There was some concern, and rightfully so, for some of the smaller kids being if they're on the same jump floor with the older kids, that there could be some, not as safe as environment. So on Fridays from 10 a.m. to noon, we do 6 and under. So we're trying to accommodate everybody as much as possible.
Yes, sir. Are there any other members of the council that have any questions, comments? Counselor Frida?
Again, thank you and congratulations on your business. I agree with the counselor at large across from me as far as the process. But our clerk generally, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, generally sends a letter out right away that says you're supposed to come in and just have a discussion with us before the license is granted, if it's something new. And I think we asked her at the last meeting if that letter was sent, and she indicated that it was. So I don't know if you missed the letter or where it went in the process, but, just, it would be nice to find out if there's a loophole, because, we're pretty consistent here.
Yeah,
so-
if something might have been sent to 118 Commercial Road before we were open, and before we were, I did stop at the post office a couple of times when they said they were just collecting mail for us. And there was definitely a disconnect I didn't know we were getting mail. So we found some missing bills that went and so on and so forth. They weren't delivering it. So I did stop there a couple of times, right up until probably a couple of weeks before we opened, and collected mail. So if something was sent, perhaps it could have gone there and it could have been missed that way.
If I could just refer to the clerk for a second. The address that would be on your information when you apply would be the business, not your personal contact?
Yeah, well, it depends on what application. So I've got 3 addresses. My personal residence, we have a mailing address, and we have the physical location address. So they all serve a slightly different purpose. But I would be curious as to if you did send a letter out, where it went.
So actually how it happened is I went to launch with my daughter and walked in and realized what the issue, and then I sent you the letter. I was never aware you were having a bowling alley in the center at all. I didn't even know what was going in launch and what a launch was.
Okay,
until
so
after you
that's the letter I
opened.
did get.
So, yeah, you got
Yeah,
the
that's
letter.
the letter I did get. Okay.
Unfortunately, there was a breakdown in communication with the building department, and I had no idea what was inside. So that's the city's fault,
Okay.
and I apologize.
No problem. We found the letter, though.
He was
That's
very
important.
prompt, though, when he got his letter, as soon as he got it from me.
Thank you.
Any other counselors have any questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak either in favor of or against 38-23? Again, for a second time, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to 38-23? And for the third and final time, is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to 38-23? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Emma, I'm going to thank you for coming down. Thank you for clarifying a few things, and we're going to make a few inquiries ourselves to make sure that this doesn't fall through, but it's not like we get very many applications for a bowling lane,
I
so.
would imagine.
We wish you the best of luck, and this will be voted on a little bit later tonight, and I'm sure you're welcome to stay, or we'll let you know.
Very good. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank
you
you.
very much.
And, Mr. President, I'd ask that the public hearing be closed.
Okay, thank you very much. And we now have a 6:30 PM public hearing on C-78 under Finance, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. If someone from the Water Department wants to join us? Do we have
We do.
Jake? Thank you.
Didn't see Jake.
Evening.
Good evening, Mr. Fleming. Thank you for coming down. This is a public hearing on C-78. Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an appropriation of $6,501,996 be made to the fiscal year 2024 Water Department budget. The same amount to be raised, offset by fiscal year 2024 receipts as authorized by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E. I am Mark Bedanza, the chairman of the Finance Committee. Also on my committee is Pauline Cormier, the second member, and Peter Angelini, the third member. Mr. Fleming, if you want to give us just a brief overview of the Water Department proposed budget for this fiscal year?
Sure. So the water department budget is very similar to the current year's budget. We're about $6.5 million this year. The fiscal '24 budget's going to be right about the same. We have no rate increase going into effect. Water consumption has been relatively level over the past couple of years. Obviously, it's weather dependent, drier weather, more water usage. It's based on projections, and with the kind of last few years, you know, as more efficient fixtures and such come out, we kind of see a reduction in some of the usage. Last year being, you know, a drought for most of the summer, it was actually slightly up, which was encouraging, and we see this year being, you know, consumption-wise in a similar realm, and the budget set similarly kind of based off of that.
You came down last week for the subcommittee hearing review. I think one of the points I took away from that was that we were always making investments in the system, some of it in pipe and new pipe, and this year, some of the investment is a little bit bigger ticket items that may reduce the number of feet that we do in terms of our program to replace some of the older pipe. But nonetheless, we are making a constant investment in the system. And I think one of the big items is that new water tank up on the end of West Street.
That's correct.
Want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that project was applied for through the Clean Water Trust SRF program, low-interest loan to the community over a 20-year term. So that application was submitted in 2019, approved in 2020. As everyone knows, you know, these projects take a while. We're about not quite halfway through the project. The tank is the largest portion of it, but there are upgrades at the No Town facility that have already been done, and upgrades at the Fallbrook treatment facility as well. That will happen after the tank is up and running again, hopefully this fall and winter. The tank is going to be a 2 million gallon precast concrete tank. DN Tanks is doing the installation. They're a local company, New England company, that won the bid. They currently have the old tank torn down, and the site work has been completed, and they will be, in the next week or so, we'll be starting to pour the walls and starting to actually build the tank. It's a pretty exciting project. It's a big project. It doesn't happen all the time. You know, you do a tank every 50 to 70 years, so it's kind of exciting to be part of it.
I see. Do members of my committee have questions? Councilor Cormier?
I just had, Jake, I know you touched on it with Counselor Bedanza, replacing the pipes we discussed, and I think during the budget, our subcommittee meeting last week, you mentioned, I think it was more than double the cost of materials. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so just kind of going back to all the projects, we're living in a post-COVID environment when it comes to supply, demand, cost, materials. We are in the third year currently of a 3-year contract for our ductile iron pipe and fittings, valves bid. That contract expires on June 30th of this year. So, month and a few days. We were prepped by some of the vendors that are going to be bidding on it. We actually put that contract out to bid last week. So it will be effective starting on July 1st, so we don't have any time lapse. So appreciate the purchasing department getting that out. It's good timing there. But we were prepped by the vendors to expect a price increase that's about double of what our year 3 contract is. So for example, a linear foot of 12-foot pipe is $40 now. Expect something about $80 or so. And that was back in March when we had this discussion, so things have changed a little bit then, so it could even be on the northern end of there. What that means for us is we have to be conservative of what we buy and what we're allocating, make sure we're ordering the right materials for the right project up front. Those lead times are also increased. We're talking 3 to 6 months out for an order, so we're doing a lot of pre-planning, pre-ordering. But obviously you need the money to do that pre-ordering. You have to have the money in the account sitting there to make those orders. So we're going to continue doing that this year. We were able to get pipe in for this year's projects. Some of it's trickling in with the delivery coming in on Wednesday this week to kind of get us through our first few projects. Going forward, something that we'll have to consider in the budget, and you'll see, we're going into repayment of this loan for the tank next year, fiscal '25. So some of this capital money you see is going to be reallocated to debt service. So as far as, what we're collecting for revenues, it's something that over the next year or so we're going to have to assess and how, see trends in water usage, see trends in revenue, and make adjustments and recommendations based off of those.
Okay, thank you.
That goes for sewer as well. Sewer is obviously based off the water. So it's going to be the same correlation when it comes to sewer.
Thank you.
You all set?
All set.
Councilor Angelini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fleming, good evening.
Good evening.
So if any of the ratepayers are watching this tonight, and we talked about some upgrades they made to No Town filtration, and I suspect it removed some of the organics that we had in there
Correct.
and reduced the trihalomethane levels.
Yep.
Could you give us a very brief sort of description of some of the techniques that you're employing over there now?
Yeah, so we changed the treatment process up at No Town, so they're now using a granular activated carbon filtration rather than sand. Sand is still used, but it was, in the past, sand and other chemicals have been used, but now it's granular activated carbon. And what that does is actually we don't have a big PFAS issue in town, but it's actually the only approved method for remediating PFAS. It's a big chemical right now in the water, well, I'm sure everyone's been aware of. But so now all 3 of our plants run off of this GAC, as we call it. And what that does is that reduces the organics in the water, which then when mixed with chlorine and go into the system, if it's there for a long time or the organics are still present, can form the disinfection byproducts. So the project up at No Town has been kind of twofold. The first one was the treatment process with that GAC transition, and the second part was reducing water age. So by doing that, we actually are removing a steel tank, 3 million gallon, and replacing it with a 2 million gallon concrete tank. So you can think, a steel tank sitting on a hill is going to generate more heat. Heat contributes to disinfection byproducts. Concrete tank, the idea behind it's going to stay cooler. And with a smaller tank, it will still provide the fire protection that we need and increase turnover in the system.
Does that reduce the backwashing too that's introduced to Manusanack Brook in that process?
They still need to be backwashed. The frequency of it, I have to check with the plant operators on there. I'm not sure, so I don't want to speak on it, but
That's fine.
they still require backwashing.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Any members of the council have a question? Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr.
Yep. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jake. So the water tank up at the end of West Street, what's the total cost of the project?
The total tank project was right around $4 million for the
million?
tank.
Okay.
The loan that we took out was $6.554 million. So obviously the tank being part of it, the tank was over budget, as it was budgeted and applied for in 2019, and construction beginning in 2022-3 isn't great for budgeting.
Yep.
Obviously, like I said, the costs have gone up exponentially. So we've worked with the mayor's office using ARPA funding, water program funds, and allocating some water capital funds as well to assist with the cost increases.
So the city won't have to, you won't be using the whole $6.5 million? loan.
Just the
or
tank,
yes.
just the tank was the 4 million. The
Right.
6.5 million will be going towards the other aspects of the project, so the No-Town
The
upgrades of the filters.
Okay.
And then the Fallbrook upgrades after as well.
Okay, so in terms of this budget, so over how many years is that going to be paid back? Do you have,
The 6.5 million,
Right.
it's a 20-year
oh, it's a 20-year loan?
Yeah.
Okay. And,
2% interest rate.
excellent. And then just in this budget, is this, there's 475,000 in the budget?
And under the capital
Yes.
capital expense?
Yep, yep.
So that's the money that we use to do our, well, for the most part, we do our pipe purchasing, our
Okay.
contractor, we just, our services contract just was, I believe they're still working on paperwork, but was just, bid and open, so that's what we use to pay those, as well as our own water crew does, water main installation,
Okay,
and upgrade, so that's what's used for those, larger, capital expenditures and upgrades to the facility, that's what that's used for.
okay, so the loan, so paying back the loan is located where in this budget?
So that loan is not gonna be shown on this budget. It doesn't go into repayment until fiscal '25.
Okay,
So that one won't be shown here. It'll be on next year's budget.
on next year's fiscal budget?
That's correct.
Okay. All righty, thank you.
Any other counselors? Counselor Cormier?
Just a very quick question. I'm assuming you must have some kind of an idea over the next few years, 3, 4, 5 years, of what some of the projects are going to be that are coming down. Can we get a list of that? I mean, I understand it's probably subject to change, probably changes all the time, just like other things, in the budget, always
Yeah.
changing. But it would be just kind of nice to know what, where you're coming from, what the priorities are,
Yeah.
what's on the radar. It would be helpful to
Yeah,
us to.
I have a 5-year capital budget that I could share that with you absolutely. What we
Yeah.
have planned, and obviously subject to change and emergencies, breaks, stuff
Right.
like that. So priorities change, but we do have, we do look out and try to plan, and that's where a lot of this kind of comes from. those
Perfect,
plans.
yeah. If you could get that to the clerk, that'd be great.
do that.
I'd like to see that. Thank
Yep,
you.
will do.
Okay, I'm going to go to the public now. Does any member of the public wish to speak relative to C-78, the Water Department budget? Second time, any member of the public wish to speak relative to C-78, the Water Department proposed budget? And a final time, does any member of the public wish to address the council relative to C-78, the Water Department budget? Seeing none, unless there's anything further, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you very much. We can move right into the 6:35 hearing on C-79.
And, C-79, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested a total appropriation of $6,613,919 be made to the fiscal year '24 Sewer Department budget. The same amount to be raised/offset by fiscal year 2024 receipts as authorized by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E. Once again, Mr. Fleming, thank you for joining us on this. If you want to give us a bit of a brief overview on the sewer department request for this fiscal year.
Very good. So a lot of the same relates from water to sewer. The sewer budget is based off of the sewer revenues. Sewer revenues are based off of water consumption in the city. So as far as how the budgets are set, same thing. It's based off of usage. The sewer rate is slightly higher than the water rate. There's not all water. People who water their lawns doesn't always go to sewer. So that's why the rates are usually higher in wastewater. Wastewater is also very expensive to treat. And so that's kind of why you see, usually universally, that's wastewater rates are slightly higher. And you go through, the biggest thing that's going to stand out here, and this goes to Councilor Shalfo Zephyr's comments on the debt service. So we are going into repayment on our wastewater loan this year. The one that's been, again, this one was, I believe the application was in 2018, and the project began in 2019. And we are now at the 99% complete phase of this, so it was a complete upgrade to our wastewater treatment plant. And you can see that one under the sewer debt service is going into repayment this year. That's the loan CWP 19-26. So that's going into, and you can see the impacts that would have on the sewer capital budget for the year. We still work on upgrades in the city. We still do lining. We did a lot of lining. We get a lot of money, work with Wendy in the mayor's office to get grants, incorporate these into some larger projects. So we're definitely still doing some upgrades. We do have some money. We've been working on on Crawford Street there's a railroad crossing, a sewer under the railroad over there we need to get done. So we do have some money that's that will be carried over from this year to next year to get that project done. Pricing, again, increases every year on that, but we're waiting on the MBTA and some permits to be able to begin that. We feel like we've been waiting on those for a couple of years, but we're on the right track. We have the easements done, the agreements, the land agreements, and everything's been submitted. So this year is hopefully the year on that. But you can kind of see how that affects the capital budget and kind of see where we'll be, on the water side next year, and things that we'll have to kind of take a look at and look at usage and stuff like that going forward.
The big part of that capital improvement was the aeration program, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's it's aeration. It's aeration, and we did the primary, secondary clarifiers. We did aerators and blowers at the wastewater plant. It's really a whole system upgrade over there. We also got new SCADA, which is the computer aspect of it for all of our plants, because our water plants need to speak to our wastewater plants. So we upgraded that. It's kind of the last step. That's one of the things that they're still working on right now. But that's great because we were running off some kind of old equipment. So it's nice to update it, and there should be some energy savings on there as well with some more efficient pumps and motors. So we're in the home stretch of that. So it's nice to kind of see everything starting to work and get the tweaks and everything like that.
And a lot of this stuff is driven by EPA requirements, right? I mean, it's not like this is necessarily all choice.
That's correct. Yeah. So these upgrades were ones that were the plant was getting old and needed updating. One thing that we always take into consideration are the new regulations that are coming out. Not just the ones that are posted, but what's down the pipeline, and try to get ahead of it. I think we spoke last week about the new NIPD's permits that are coming out for the wastewater plant and the Manusnack Brook discharge at No Town. And we're in the draft phase of it. We're actually working with an engineer right now to help draft comments in response to the draft permit, get some clarification. Our plant operator had some questions about the requirements and things like that. Once the permit's issued, there may be additional testing that's required. Our treatment process is going to be pretty up to date, so I don't see any issues there. Maybe modifications on how we operate the equipment to meet certain things. But the testing is really what's going to end up being the cost driver, things that aren't included in our current O&M contract with the plant, Veolia, the plant operator. And so, so that's something that once those permits come out, we'll have to address what they're going to require us to do and see how to get those done. They usually give a 2-year grace period when they do anything drastic to give you time to coordinate and plan. And so, we'll use that time to really see what we can do.
I've always, since I've been down here, I've always appreciated your and your predecessor, Mr. Brooks' proactive stance on a lot of these issues. It's really good to see. I'd ask if members of my committee have any questions. Councilor Angelini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fleming, quickly, can you just let us know where we are status-wise in the National River Bank Restoration Project? Is that still in the planning phase?
Yep, it's actually not in the planning phase. We actually had our pre-construction meeting last, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. I forget the day. It was Wednesday or Thursday, but we met with George Carnes and Son was the winning bidder, and we had our pre-construction meeting on that, and they were hoping to start mobilizing to right off a commercial road, the little grass area over there is where their staging area is going to be, and they're hoping to mobilize at the end of this month or early June. So
Perfect.
it's coming right down the right down the
It's
line.
another
soon.
example of wonderful work that Grant Wright
Yeah.
does.
That was not an easy one too. So that's a lot of kudos to Wendy to get that done. That was tough.
And to segue just briefly off the chairman's comment, some of this work, like I&I work, sometimes is a result of administrative consent orders that we enter into with either EPA or DEP. And unlike other communities that enter into these and seem like they drag on for decades, we really do address these and meet the requirements of these.
That railroad crossing is the only item we have left on ours, and that's kind of why we've been working on it for the few years. And like I said, we're really trying to get that done this calendar year to kind of get that behind us. So.
It gives me great pleasure to say you guys do a marvelous job over there, and we're very proud of you. So keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Go to, thank you, Councilor Angelini. Go to the council generally. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Jake, so we have heard about for a very long time. Raj was here over 20 years ago,
Yeah.
I think, when the whole thing started. So where are we in terms of completing that,
I
citywide?
don't know if you'll ever be complete. It's
Oh.
it's that when you do the lining. So some of the line we've been very proactive. The liners
Yep.
that you put in, the specification of those they're rated for 50 years. Now they've gone a lot longer than that, but that's what they say 50 years once the host pipe loses its structural integrity. So if you put it into a good host pipe, it's going to last a lot longer. So it's always going to be something. It's really just trying to those maintenance, whether you're in front of it, where we're in front of it now and we're doing maintenance, as opposed to
Right.
if you're behind it and you're being mandated by the EPA and DEP to do work. So right now, we're not under any mandates to do any of this work. We're doing this work as preventative maintenance, and it's actually cost savings too. Where if you're taking in all the storm water pouring into a bad manhole or whatnot, you bring it down to the plant, the wastewater plant. You have to treat that the same way you're treating sewage, and it's not cheap. And you see it. We're actually right now, as we speak, in doing flow monitoring. We try to do, I wouldn't say annual flow monitoring, but we've done it over the past handful of years, and sometimes every other year, depending on, we get data, and we try to do the projects that data tells us and points us in the direction of doing. And obviously, big rain events are ones that help you identify those. So I was looking this morning about we actually have it set up so we can, it's called telegraphy, but it's on like a cellular system. So I actually logged in today and I could see on Saturday when the rain started, and I could see some of the flows on some of the meters start to tick up. And there's, we have them in different areas in the city. And there's just some areas that are highly affected by it. There's some areas that you don't see very much. And that's what you want to see. You want to see it, rain event, no real
Yeah, not
changes
have-
to your flow.
Yep.
So we're working on it. Like I said, it's, to say we're going to be
Never
complete,
ending.
it's, I'd be making it up when I tell you we're going to be done in 10 years or 20 years. But we've been making a dent, and that's, good as we can, that's as good as we can do.
Good.
We stay
And
ahead
that
of it.
saves money. That saves money
Yeah,
for
right.
ratepayers, yeah. Thank you.
Is that Councilor? Any other councilors? I'll go to the public. Any member of the public wish to address the council relative to the sewer department budget, C-79? And a second time, would any member of the public like to address the council on the proposed sewer department budget, C-79? And a third and final time, would any member of the public like to address the council on the sewer department budget? Seeing none, I will declare the public hearing closed.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Thank you. And in just a few seconds, we're gonna start our meeting, 'cause it's almost 7 o'clock, and then we'll recess, and then we'll take care of the public hearing on C-80 in the public forum, and then we'll go into our regular meeting. And the time is now 7 p.m., so I'm gonna call the regular meeting of the Leominster City Council for May 22nd, 2023 to order. Will you all please stand and join me for a salute to the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm now going to take a roll call of the honorable members of the Leominster City Council, beginning with Councilor Bedanza.
Present.
Councilor Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Arndinger.
Present.
Councilor Angelini.
Present?
Councilor Brady.
Present.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Present.
Councilor Deacon.
Present.
Councilor Frida.
Present.
And I am present. All 9 members are present. And at this point, I will ask the Vice President if we have any records to approve this evening.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have reviewed the minutes from April 24th, 2023, and I've been informed that changes have been made, so unless anyone has any further objections, I would tell Mr. President that they are ready to be placed on file. And I would ask for more time on the May 8th, 2023 minutes, if we could just continue that to the next meeting.
Okay, so if there are no objections, we will place the April 24th, 2023 minutes on file. Seeing none, that will be done, and I, at this point, will ask for a motion for a recess. Councilor Bedanza and Councilor Shalfo Zephyr has seconded it. All those in favor of entering to recess signify in the usual manner. Those opposed by a vote of 9-0. The council now stands in recess. Mr. Chairman of Finance, will you continue with the public hearing on C-80?
Thank you, Mr. President. C-80, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor. request that the fiscal year 2024 budget, which totals $161,872,478, be adopted. $161,426,478 to be raised by fiscal 2024 revenues. $136,000 to be transferred from the Gallagher Building Special Revenue Fund, $60,000 to be transferred from the Cemetery Trust Fund, and $250,000 from the overlay account. If the mayor is here, I'd ask him to join us. And his,
He's not here.
is the comptroller here?
Yep, she's
Maybe the
coming.
comptroller could join us. And I'm going to have the school officials come in at the same time as well. Welcome.
Good evening.
Maybe if you could just each identify yourself for the public.
Sure, my name is Jennifer Reddington. I'm the comptroller for the city.
Paula Deacon, Superintendent of Public Schools.
Melanie Michaels, Business Manager for the Leominster Public Schools.
Thank you all very much for joining us this evening. Ms. Reddington, if you maybe could give us just an overview of the budget this year, brief overview.
Sure. We started with a level funded budget like we always do, and we reached out to all of the departments and made adjustments where we needed to. The main highlights for this year are that we absorbed the grant-funded ALS positions. We also added 2 new full-time ALS positions. We added a new code enforcement position. We added the new police criminalist. We brought the police reform overtime into the main budget. The last 2 years, we've come down for an appropriation for it, so that's now included in the budget. And the dispatchers, we have done a significant amount of work over at the fire department, and they will go live starting June 1st. So those are the main highlights. Our fiscal year levy ceiling was $90,158,798, and of that we have a 2.5% increase, which is $2,253,970. We, and that number can get adjusted a little bit depending on our new growth. Right now, it's not anticipated to be what it has been in the past couple of years. It could be as low as 800,000, which would be, quite a bit lower than we've had the last couple of years. It's been in the million to 1.2 million range. So this year is going to be significantly lower. We also estimate the rooms tax to be around 200,000. That was a little higher last year, but again, one of the hotels is going to be shifted over, so we'll no longer be getting the revenue from that. So, the budget for that stays around 200,000.
And we have 250,000 we're transferring him as sort of excess reserve in the overlay account as well?
Yes, yep.
Okay. And thank you for the sort of overview of the additional initiatives or things that we're financing. In addition to that, we have the non-union pay scale that we just voted on recently, which is now incorporated in this budget as well, correct?
It is, yes.
Okay, so all of that's funded. I know the fire chief was here during our subcommittee meeting and suggested that really there's no really net tax effect to the public with respect to the ALS program based on the increases in revenue from the actual operation of the program, which is really good news because it's a great service that's being rendered to the public without a lot of financial impact.
Yep, that's what we hope. We increased the revenue line item to hope, and we hope that we get the revenues that we anticipated this year to cover the cost for the program. We'll still have, next year, there'll still be one more addition. I believe it's still another person to, which they're going to fill with overtime right now. So that will be the final step. We have 3 years to become 24-hour compliant, and that should bring us there. So we'll
and once again, we also, as a city, have traditionally been pretty conservative in our budgeting and have been able to certify excess and deficiency monies from the, by the state to help fund our capital investments, and that
Yes.
continues to be our philosophy. Is that correct?
That is our philosophy, that we, budget our main budget very conservatively, and then any, we don't spend money we don't have. So then when the free cash is certified, that's when we look to our capital plan and see what we can, go down the list and start checking off. So we, have our new capital plan that we're looking at, and we'll start looking at 2024 pretty soon.
Well, I want to compliment you on the budget materials. I mean, once again, they're really nicely done and very informative, as well as your presentation. I think I'd also like, obviously, one of the big expenditures in any city or town is education, which it should be. And it sounds like from our subcommittee meeting that we have some good news on that side as well. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to the superintendent and business agent to give us a little idea of what's
Thank you.
happening with our school budget.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself on this.
So noted, Councilor Deacon.
I hope that the answer, if you have any questions beyond tonight's presentation, I can say with confidence, it's in the book. 4 inches of paper, it's in the book. We were very careful to make sure that any and all documentation is in there. We're in year 3 of a 6-year correction to the foundation budget, and Leominster is truly in benefit. We are now a school system that is below none. Anything that our students need, any programming that we need, we have been able to accomplish. We have all new curriculum, staffing, materials. Our buildings are in the best health that they've ever been in. Moving forward, we no longer charge students for bus fees, athletic fees, school supplies, you name it, summer school, computers. That is all on the Leominster Public Schools, and we are going to continue that tradition moving forward. This is a net school spending budget that is before you, but the net school spending foundation budget is up 9.26%. So that's $8.5 million, on top of all the grants that we still apply for, that we still get. So we are in great benefit right now and moving forward. We have 3 more years of Chapter 70 being corrected. The one place that we would like to see the state take some additional moves is around special education. Our students are not accounted for fully. So we know that there is a big movement on the floor right now to have that recognized through our circuit breaker. Melanie has numbers this evening that I'd like her to go over, just so the public's clear on what we're presenting and moving forward.
Sure, thank you. As Paula said, our numbers have jumped in the last few years, and that is part of that correction, and rightfully so. She's already indicated our Chapter 70 is up, rounded about $8.5 million just this year alone. We don't obviously plan on seeing those types of jumps every year, so we plan accordingly. Our education, special education, sounds like the state has approved our out-of-district tuitions to increase their costs up to 14%. So we have accounted for that in this budget. We do have carry forward on our circuit breaker revolving account of over $2.1 million, so we can offset some of that increase with that. We've set aside a good amount in our budget to help assist with those tuitions, because special education, you don't know. You could have a student that needs to go out of district for services. It could be $300,000 for one student. So we try to account for that carefully, but every year it is sort of a fluctuating number. We talk about the other funding that we still have. The ESSER funding is still a part of our budget. We are still being very fiscally responsible with it. We do put some staffing in there, but the staffing that we include in those grants are 2-year contractual positions. They're noted when we hire the individuals, and we hope that we can absorb them, but we don't guarantee it. So those positions are 2-year contracts, and when the ESSER's gone, we'll reevaluate at the time. We do still have, running through fiscal '24, an additional $11 million that comes from ESSER funding. Many wonderful projects are in the works. Obviously, we've got to go through procurement and the bid process, and the office down here has been wonderfully trying to help us get those through, but there are a lot of them, so it's going to take some time. We can certainly, in the book that you have, there is a list of the projects. If you'd like to see those are all listed in there. We talk about other funding that we have. We have been lucky to carry forward some of our school choice for the last couple of years. And so we are happy to say that we've got a nice cushion of about $5 million by next year with our school choice. And for us, that's something we can look at and see with our Fallbrook project coming up, that there's always those unforeseen things that we may have to account for, and they're not in the budget. So the school choice is going to be great to handle some of that.
Well, this is a happy convergence of many events.
Yeah.
Yes, it
I mean,
is.
thank you very much for your work on the budget book. Again, like last year, spectacular amount of information, well organized, right at your fingertips, really well done.
Thank
you.
You know, when you look at that, that's a major plus step forward. You know, the ESSER money, the Chapter 70 adjustment, it's just all good news.
Yep.
And I want to thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
good
Thank
work.
you.
Look forward to happy years coming
And
up.
compliment to the comptroller.
Yeah.
The relationship between these two is astounding right now.
Yeah,
So
that is,
we square up every Friday, so we know that everybody knows where the bills are coming from.
yeah, that's
So it
that's
feels
great.
great.
That's good. That's a really good thing. Jen, just to go back a little bit, we're opening a new police station shortly. People, obviously, that's tangible. They can see it. It's a long time coming. Right now, we're in bands or borrowing in anticipation of the bond that won't be, we won't see that till what, fiscal '26?
Probably, maybe 25, because we'll have to go
Yeah.
for permanent bonding in January of this coming year.
I see.
So, and it should not affect the budget. The interest that's allocated now for the short-term debt should cover the cost of both principal and interest, if the interest rates stay relatively.
So with just a little bit of optimism,
Right.
that project, $32 million, I think we were at, or someplace around there,
Yep.
will not affect the current tax rate.
It shouldn't. Everything should just, file right in order.
Yeah.
If the market changes, then that changes
Yeah.
things, but.
In the early stages, we have potentially a project at Fallbrook.
Yes.
A little too
Very
soon to
exciting.
talk about that yet,
Right.
but at least it's
Being talked about.
It's
yes.
being talked about, and the
We're happy
SBA's
about that.
involved, and,
Right,
you know.
just a little of attention, it's
Yeah.
great.
All right, I'm going to open up to members of my committee if they have any questions.
I have no questions.
Counselor Angelini?
I just have one quick question, if I may, for the
Sure.
superintendent. Madam Superintendent, in your letter to the council, the last bullet point, it says providing flexibility, creativity, and innovation to students in a non-traditional way. Can you expound on that a little bit for me?
Thank you for asking that. So we were successful last Monday at school committee to get approval from our school committee to sort of round out our alternative programs. We are going to move forward with a virtual platform for students that, during COVID, there were students who did learn well, and for some reason, sometimes they just can't be in school. It could be medical, it could be emotional, there's a plethora of reasons why students can't be in school. Along with that, with our alternative program, we are now allowed to hire enough staff to have flex hours. So 8 to 2 doesn't work for everyone. So we will have a longer day with staff for students who need additional time and attention. We're also at a point that we are looking to rent some space. We're ready to expand. We can afford it. We can sustain it as well. So we are definitely looking at the sciences, creating more STEM opportunities, all the way K to 12. So we've put a lot of money into our sciences right now, our curricular products. It's a good time to be a student in Leominster. Very good time. Thank you. Thank you.
Open up to members of the council. Council Shalfo-Zephyr.
Yeah, thank you very much. Melanie, I have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
I guess for everybody, for
Yep.
the superintendent as well.
Sure.
So, ESSER funds are going away. You mentioned that the Student Opportunity Act, the change in the formula, we have 3 more years of that. So that's huge. I mean, right now it's $8.5 million. $8 million is still on the table to be spent, from the ESSER funds. So when these funds twilight, or whatever it is, they're going to go away. And the ESSER funds are going away in the next fiscal year, correct?
Correct.
And then we have 2 more years, basically, after that
Foundation.
with the
Correct.
foundation budget.
Yep.
So the big question, is, okay, that's a lot of money that's going to be gone away. So how is that going to be absorbed into the budget? My second question is more specifically about You had mentioned that a lot of the positions, I think, that are covered by COVID funds are two-year contract positions. So my question is, well, how many?
Okay.
How many positions, and then what kind of positions? I think that's really important to understand.
Sure. Well, the first question, we can, the ESSER funding. We do have until fiscal '24, but the funding is not being used for any long-term expense. It's one-time expenditures, such as curriculum, that we're able to purchase and then put into play with our teachers, and, you know, that's sustainable. So we're trying to make decisions that are sustainable, not in a monetary way, but something that's going to allow our students to be learning for years to come without having those reoccurring expenses.
The portable classrooms.
Yep.
Those are millions of dollars
Yeah.
to get. So right now, a lot of that bid process is sitting here, over in the procurement office. So it is really one-time purchases. We tried not to put staff as much as possible,
Yeah.
but the first year coming back, we needed extra nurses. We
course.
needed extra guidance.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so those positions have been reevaluated. Each building now has a manageable amount of nurses. People are coming and going, as
Yeah.
you can tell by the employment rates. So we're assessing who we need to keep. Do you know the number in ESSER right now? It's not many.
It's not many.
people.
I would say it's a handful.
Yep.
Yeah, we probably, and they are, a couple of our, we call them individual contracts, but some of them are more administrative type. I'm trying to think of.
Bill.
which else.
You
Yes.
know, so an
we-
assistant
yes.
director, there were so many projects happening that our
Yeah.
facilities director, he needed an assistant.
Yeah.
That is just during this time period,
Right.
and that is understood. So it's things like that that at the end, we're going to be okay. I'll still have a facilities director.
Right.
I won't have an assistant facilities director.
Right.
So we're assessing those positions right now to say, what do we want to put into local? And there's a few in this budget that we did move over for different grant purposes that we know we're going to need long-term, based on what we're seeing right now.
And then, but what about the change in the formula?
Yeah,
Going-
I don't foresee that formula jumping 8 million every year.
No,
So
I
we
don't either.
certainly-
That's why I'm
But if it
concerned.
does, it's
Correct.
fine.
But
If it does, it's fine.
Absolutely, we would love that.
Yeah.
So we're now to a
No.
level, this is, for us, I just keep using the word, it's a correction.
Yeah.
There is not a surplus happening here in Leominster. These are the things that we should have had in place years and years and years ago. So we're now there. We won't need to keep adding people and adding people. Our buildings are in great shape. The projects that we've been able to do to address HVAC, roofs, basements.
Boilers. Yeah.
Boilers,
Yeah.
3 playgrounds. So those are the things that we're making sure that at the end of this money, we're in great shape, not good shape, we're in great shape to get down to education with the right people and the right buses. Right now, we're making sure that the majority of students can be in their home school.
Yep.
Everybody has guidance staff, everybody has a nurse now, everybody has programming. And that serves a huge purpose.
Right.
So we're watching, and we have projected out the next 3 years.
Yeah.
What the worst-case scenario could be, we're not going backwards.
Right.
I was just
Leominster
gonna
will not
say,
go backwards.
Chapter
The
70 is
foundation budget,
correct.
you're in 6 years correction, but
Yeah.
it's a correction, it's not going to revert back
It will not
to-
revert back.
I don't know if that was a miss,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it won't, but it could be
reverse.
level funded, basically, going
Correct.
forward. And your costs will go up as they do every single year.
Correct.
So if you are looking at a level funded budget, you're going to be in, you're going to
Right.
be in trouble. So,
Right. Yep, that's where
no,
we're
I
at.
understand that.
Sustainability part
Yeah.
of it, though, is by doing the projects that we've done, whether it's the boilers and those building types of things.
All those capital projects,
we
I
saved
understand.
A
Yeah.
lot of
Yep.
future, expenses that we were putting Band-Aids on over the years.
Yeah, and they cost money
Yep.
to maintain and
Even
pay
the
for.
curriculum products, millions of dollars
Yeah.
we've invested in curriculum, and that's K through the high school.
Yep. The new improvements, the longer days with additional staff, the expansion of alternative programs, which I think is great. Now, is that in the regular budget going forward?
Yes.
That's not coming
It's
out of
not
any,
No,
Okay.
Not in
it's all
fiscal
local.
'24.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're really hoping with having this virtual platform, there should not be a reason why any child leaves this district to go to another alternative program. We're paying tuition for Goodrich and Fitchburg, TECA Online, and a few other platforms. There should be no reason any child leaves here. So those students would then be factored into our foundation budget.
Correct.
So that, is sort of an
So you're
offset for
always-
us
yeah.
as well.
Okay.
Retention equals Chapter 70.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Retention of
Retention.
students equals Chapter 70.
Okay. Another question. I think, Melanie, you mentioned school choice funds to help cover, some Fallbrook capital costs. Now, school choice tuition, I was understood, was always supposed to really be going to the classroom for the kids that are choosing to come in, right? So,
It's any relatable expense for students. The tuitions for circuit breaker are more narrowed to just tuitions. But school choice has always been open. There's been times when we covered transportation from
kinds of
there.
stuff. No, I know, but it,
Yeah.
but
And we
this-
haven't touched it in years.
Right.
Right, but it's not supposed to be used for that, I guess is my point, so,
No, it's anything relatable, anything that has to do with students.
Okay.
Whether that's, your teacher's health insurance, whether it's the transportation for a student, it's anything relatable.
okay. And then chargebacks from the city, I mean, you've got those covered and you've got those delineated and those are all,
They're in the book.
they're all accounted for.
Thank you, Jen.
Yes, Jen was,
With
Jen's
an
been
agreement.
very, very good about
Yeah.
having those to us in a timely manner, so it's
Okay,
been
good.
great.
Good. I'm just looking at my notes here.
Sure.
I think that's, I think I'm good.
Thank
For
you,
the moment,
Counselor.
yeah.
Any other
Yeah.
counselors have questions? I'll open it up to the public. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to the city council relative to C80, the city budget for fiscal '24? If you just identify yourself and
evening.
address.
Gary Zimmerman, 47 Lynn Haven Road. I almost missed the meeting because I'm not used to it having it this early. It's usually later in June.
Right.
So I scrambled this weekend to put whatever I could together. It is my perspective, as you know. And these are, anything I'm going to say isn't about any individual. It's very general. Certain categories will be brought up, but it has nothing to do with the people, it's just throwing numbers out there. It's that time of year again to get frustrated with our government and taxes. Since I started watching budgets, it's gone from 99 million to 161 million. I understand things go up and costs go up more, but with our government, especially in Massachusetts, they don't try to fix anything, they just keep throwing money at it. Everyone knows if this government was a business, it would be out of business, without a doubt. Anyone in this world that has a budget knows they have to adjust when things go up, like taxes, electricity, food, or whatever. Households don't have the luxury to go to their boss and say, I need more money because my taxes just went up. But our government, it just keeps raising our taxes and not fixing. 50 to 80 years ago, the public sector wasn't the best paying job, but it had the great benefit package in retirement. Today, it's great pay and great retirement packages. They never fixed the system, and the taxpayers are paying the price. Now taxpayers have to pay the pension liability fund and other public sector benefits, which is why millions of taxpayer dollars are tied up in the pension liability fund and OPEB, other post-employee benefits. Millions of dollars, because the state isn't fixing these things. Things they should be doing is cutting the pensions. I'm sorry, people shouldn't be retiring with $80,000 to $160,000 in pay in retirement, and the average taxpayer on Social Security is about $22,000. I don't hear anything in the public sector that is going to help fund my Social Security that isn't going to be funded years down, according to what they say. Another change to the public sector: shouldn't be allowed to retire early. Why don't we fix these things? These are millions of dollars that are being done that people in the public sector can retire early. But no, our taxes keep going up. It used to be 2 million, 2.5 million. Now I've seen 5 million. Now it's 6 million. Have the taxpayers that retire early. According to the mayor, he corrected me many times that after 10 years, people qualify for early health care. After 10 years, they can get full health care at whatever, I don't know the other formula, if it's 55 or 60, we pay their health care. Last I knew in the school system, when I was involved watching the school budget, over $2 million in early retirement health care was being paid. And I don't think the taxpayers should be funding that. So if we don't fix these things it's only going to get worse. I can't retire till 65 and I have to pay for Medicare. I don't know if they can still retire at 55 or 60, but then that's huge, getting their health care paid for. If the costs went up for the right reasons, I can understand the constant tax increase. But I think it's just spend, 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 not fix, fix, fix. I'm not here to pick on individuals or certain departments, but to express my frustration on our taxes, which I've done many times already. Constantly increasing year after year, but nothing, again, seems to be getting fixed. I know a lot of these issues are at the state level, but it rolls down to the cities and towns. I hope our elected officials make the right decision based on their constituents. I know I was going to have trouble with that word. But I'm not sure if that happens or not. So let's talk about some of the departments. So the fire department, there's one person, and again, I got caught off guard, so I didn't get through all the payrolls and everything as much as I'd like to. I tried to find the mayor's budget. I couldn't find it. I got on the web page and it said, click here to see the budget, and I get the presentation, but that helped a little bit with some of the numbers. But anyway, payroll on the fire department. There's one person with more pay in other in their salary than their base pay. Their base pay is $72,000. Their other pay is $97,000. Does anyone look into this? I mean, it could be legit. Again, I'm looking from the outside in. I don't know. But when I look through that looks very strange to me. I think the last time I was here 3 or 4 years ago, it was the same thing. There was someone making over $200,000 in the fire department with the considered other pay. Wire department, $67,000 in other pay. Lots of firefighters with over $30K in other pay. Now, I know other pay, I can't say it's overtime. I know they get allowances for uniforms and stuff, but lots of firefighters over $30K. I don't know what that number is. Is anyone looking into that? The ambulance. I know when the ambulances started years ago, I was here, and one of the questions that was asked to the fire chief, is it profitable? And the answer was he didn't know. I don't know if the mayor's budget or any line items, but I would think if you're taking in money from a thing that you're charging the taxpayers with the ambulance and you're getting revenue, why isn't there a line item for ambulance? What it costs, repairs. I think the fire chief said every 3 years you got to get a new ambulance. Is it profitable? If it's not profitable and it's costing the taxpayers money, why doesn't it go back to the private sector instead of costing us, could be millions of dollars, could be thousands, I don't know. Police station. It's nice that the police station is finally getting done. But too bad on the cost. Another one of the problems with Massachusetts is prevailing wages. I bet you the police station, if we got rid of prevailing rates and opened it up to any bid, we could have saved probably $10 million. But we can't because the state has prevailing rates. Also on the land purchase. I remember when you were talking about the land purchases, that one parcel of land we weren't getting taken advantage of. Well, I think we did. Every property around the police station went for its assessed value, except for one that we paid over $900,000 for. There's a piece of land next to the mobile station on Central Street. I think it's 1.5 acres of land. It went for its assessed value of $350,000.
Gary, I'm going to give you lots of latitude, okay? But,
Yep.
You're talking, for example, about prevailing wages. That's a state law. It involves unions. It involves a whole
Yep.
lot of things that have nothing to do with our city budget.
Okay.
The acquisition of those parcels of land many fiscal years ago has nothing to do with the city budget that's before us tonight.
Well,
As I said, I'm going to give you
okay.
plenty of latitude, okay?
All right.
But just try to keep constrained to the budget. That's what we're
Okay.
here for tonight.
All right. Well, again, I look at the numbers, and again, I won't get into it that further. Okay, going to the school department. Again, I'm going to go through some salaries that I saw, and I think some of the categories that they're listed as aren't correct, but I can only go by what I see. And again, it gets into the pay with not correcting the other things, which falls down to the city. So we got a sped teacher that says they make 118K. And there's a sped teacher that says 121K, but when I looked it up, it's actually a coordinator. Someone making 118,000, there's no title. Kindergarten teacher making 90K, custodian making 100K. Teachers' other pay over, there's a teacher that makes an other pay 21K. There's another teacher with other pay making 27K. Roughly 260 teachers making 80 to 100K. Most principals and assistant principals are all in six figures. Assistant superintendent, 164K, along with the super at 195K. So again, the reason I mention all these salaries, again, is anyone fighting or talking about fixing the pension system? Because it comes down to local cities and towns that we end up paying the pension liability fund and OPEB. It rolls down to us as a city. Sorry. So on a teacher's, I look at a teacher's salary again. I'm assuming they work an 8-hour day. I don't know what the hours are. A $60,000 teacher, and again, most people work 240 hours, 240 days a year compared to 182 days. I know everyone works extra and does extra things, it's fine. A $60,000 salary is $41 an hour. And if you added that to a 240-day year, that would go up to $55,000 and an $80,000 check. Stipends. There's another thing that really, when I'm involved in the system, school system with my kids and stuff like that, there's a lot of stipends out there. I remember seeing one of the administrators doing bus duty. I said, oh, that's awful nice of her to do the bus duty. Come to find out she got a stipend for it at 2 o'clock. You start looking at, is that double pay? Is an admin supposed to be, I don't know, 8 to 5? I mean, I'm just rolling out numbers. Is that double pay? They get a stipend pay while they're working. One of the other things I've talked to Paula about too, a few years ago, why don't we look at going year-round school? Still 182 days, broken up into 3 sectors. Don't have summer schools, save some money there. I know a lot of teachers I talk to say the summers are too long. I heard studies that after kids come back from school in 2.5 months, that the teachers are going over everything they forgot because it's too long. There's studies about it.
I'm going to put you in charge of the trimester school system. I'm going to make you the chairperson to implement it.
Okay.
All right? I want to see how much fun you have with that.
All I'm saying is, what I'm getting to is nothing seems to be getting, again, I'm looking at it from the outside in. Money keeps getting taken out of my pocket, and I'm not sure I see anything being fixed or changed or anything being done to help the high cost of everything. And whether it's early retirement, pensions, whatever it is.
Every city and town has challenges.
Oh, I understand
The
that.
whole Commonwealth. We did a study many years ago when Steve Perla was elected mayor, and nothing's really changed. I mean, I'm thinking about 90% of what we spend is on people.
Yep.
All these jobs are important jobs. There's nothing more important than educating children. Fire, police, you mentioned the ambulance system. We have now an advanced life support ambulance system that the fire chief came in here and talked about last week that will have little to no effect on the taxpayer. And we're offering that service to people that many communities can't offer. In addition to that, you know, most years we're using the 2.5 levy limit, which is a Massachusetts state statute, as you're probably very well aware. You're probably also aware that we have a 5.5% excess levy capacity, meaning that we didn't charge the taxpayer 2.5% all of the years in the past. Try to find some communities that have that, because I don't think you're going to be able to. So are we perfect? No, we're not. Okay, will we ever be perfect? Probably not. But we do a pretty good job here. And, you know, I applaud you as a citizen for coming down here and taking the time.
I know, I'm by myself.
Because you are by yourself. Yeah, and you know what? I applaud you for taking the time and coming down here and doing your homework and being able to speak on some of these issues, because some of your concerns are valid, but they are, frankly, most of them beyond the budget that we're dealing with tonight. And that doesn't mean that we should sit on our hands and not do anything about it.
Yep.
But, you know, some of this stuff is very difficult. And I didn't mean to be glib with you about, you know, giving you a job to create trimesters for schools. But, it's easy to say some things. It's a lot harder to get them done.
Oh, I know that the condo I work at, sometimes it's harder to get things done than it is to do with them. But, and trust me, Leominster is a great city. I wouldn't still be living here if I didn't like it. So I meant to say that up front. Like I said, I'm getting my notes as fast this weekend and today. Leominster is a great city, don't get me wrong. My kids went to school. We dealt with Paula when she was up at the Samoset. Teachers are great. That's what I'm saying, not individuals. It's more financial that when I work my butt off, and when I keep getting money taken out of my pocket, and then you see someone retired at 55 in public service and getting their health care paid for, that is aggravating. Now, it's not the city's fault. It's the state. It's the way the state does its business.
No, we have to compete with all those other communities for these positions.
I understand.
Not in a vacuum, as you
Right.
know.
I understand that. And the problem is they're not fixing what was going on. As you know, 50 to 80 years ago, it was not, people talked about it. It wasn't a good paying job to work for the city or town or anything in Massachusetts, but you had great benefits. And what I tell my kids right now, get a state, federal, or local job in public sector, and you'll be set for life.
All right, so you covered that ground already, so
All right.
is there anything
So-
new?
Yeah, see, now you got me all confused here. So I'll just get to a couple city things. You know, the streetlights, when the streetlights are done, and this is, and sidewalks are the same thing. We don't analyze anything. I would go down Litchfield Street every day at night and look at streetlights and saying, there's 9 streetlights that could be shut off and not reinstalled. So all we do is put them back up. Why save tens of thousands of dollars? Who cares? Same thing with sidewalks. Why are we putting sidewalks on both sides of the road? Just because they're there in the first place? Why don't we analyze it? Because I look at it, they put 2 trees in front of my property on 4th Street, and they're almost hitting the wires. Why don't they put sidewalks on the pole side and the trees on the other? I think it would look great. But we keep throwing money out, and that's maintenance. That adds up to taxpayers' dollars. And I think it's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars if it was fixed. Oh, the last thing I'll touch, I'll skip everything else, doesn't matter. Moody's, the Moody's rating, and I know, Mark, we've talked about this before. You know, when I get a rating, it's based on my payments, my credit cards and stuff like that. To have millions of dollars sitting there, I don't know why the state doesn't come up with a new method of, if your city and town pays their bills and shouldn't have to tie up 17, 20 million, I don't even know what it is now.
Approximately 20 million.
About 20 million. So $20 million is sitting there, and our tax rate keeps going up. I know it saves millions on the other end, but why is it that way? That these local cities and towns, like you said, everyone's struggling. They want more money, so you got to tie up $17 million or $20 million in other states, when most people get rated by paying your bills. So you screwed me up by interrupting me, but that's okay. I thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Councilor Frida?
Yeah, thanks for giving me a minute to speak, because I just wanted to clarify something, Gary, with you. As everybody knows, I'm part of the Mass Municipal Association as a director, and I've been there for almost 30 years. I can tell you, for the past 5 to 8 years, we've had a serious issue on employees, people not wanting to join the public sector. I mean, I know you mentioned numerous times at the podium that this was something that everybody wants to join because of the benefits. We're not finding treasurers. There are communities that are in desperate need of treasurers, comptrollers, public sector people. They don't want to work public sector jobs anymore. We've started a training program, and we've started a policy to go out and try to get people to learn how to be a treasurer, how to be a comptroller, how to get in the private sector. Do you know what kind of trouble we'd be in if we didn't have access to a good treasurer or a good comptroller, or what we'd be doing? You'd be complaining about a lot more, and I'm not being glib either, Gary, because we've known each other for a long time.
I don't take it personally.
But, no, but we'd be in a lot of trouble if we didn't have the capabilities that we have, or even have a choice to be able to hire somebody with those qualifications. The private sector has got it all over us right now in terms of, talk to Ray Racine at the DPW. He can't find a mechanic. He can't find people to come in and work because he's outbid by $10, $20 an hour and great benefits.
How many
So
positions
that's,
did you have
I
that
just
you
wanted
carried
to
over?
clarify that, because you're right. 20 years ago, everybody wanted a city hall job. That was great, but not anymore. It's really changed. So we're lucky to have the staff that we have, and we're very fortunate to have that. And we need to really think about that in the future to keep the employees that we do have that are working the way we want them to work. So I've been working hard on that with the MMA, so, you know, I didn't take offense to it, but it needed to be clarified that those aren't easy jobs to find at this point.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councilor Frida. Any other member of the public wish to address the city council on C80, the budget for fiscal '24? Second time, any member of the public wish to address the city council on C80, the fiscal year '24 budget, city budget? And a third and final time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the council relative to the fiscal year '24 city budget? Seeing none, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Mr.
everyone.
Chairman. Thank you. We are now going to hold a public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for any member of the audience to speak on any matter listed on the city council agenda. Speakers will be asked to come to the microphone and state their formal name and address, along with identifying the specific item or items they wish to address. Each speaker is respectfully asked to keep their comments within a 2-minute time frame. The council will not be responding or answering any questions. However, at the discretion of the council president, clarification may be given. No one has specifically signed up to speak. However, I will ask, will any member of the audience like to speak at the public forum? If so, please step to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Mr. Zimmerman, 2 minutes.
47 Lynn Haven, Leominster. I just want to, I will follow up with the thing again and reiterate that Leominster is a great city to be in. It has everything. It's located in the center of everything. And again, I'm looking from the outside in, all right? So I can only look at my numbers that I come up with. So that's all I'm bringing up to the council. And from the standpoint of a taxpayer in what we see. And it is frustrating. I'm sure you got an earful from it from other people. And most people, I think they're not here because they haven't got their tax bill with the new tax rate that'll be in there and the increase, because that's when you start hearing the numbers. So I'll repeat that, again, I'm only here looking from the outside in. I know you guys got better numbers, clarifying things, and Mark. So I thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak at the public forum? And once again, would anybody else like to speak at the public forum? Seeing none, I declare the public forum closed. And we are now back in session. And we will move right into communications from the mayor, beginning with C-82, Madam Clerk.
C-82, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $44,180.15 be made to the library's operating account, the same amount to be transferred from the library's state aid to public library account regarding security camera replacement.
And C-82 is referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the calendar, regular course, please.
C-82 has been given regular course. C-83.
C-83, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $20,000 be made to the library's library's operating account, the same amount to be transferred from the library's state aid to public library account regarding book purchases.
And C-83 is also referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Same situation, first time, regular course, please.
C-83 has been given regular course. Moving on to matters before the City Council. Mr. Chairman, are you ready for a financial report?
I am, Mr. President. We started the fiscal year on July 1st of '22 with a balance in the stabilization account of $20,675,366. We added interest during the course of the year of $252,677, as well as transferred in from excess and deficiency $4 million with a resulting balance of $24,928,044. During the course of the fiscal year to date, we have spent $3,918,923 of that amount, leaving a final balance of $21,009,120, and that is the financial report.
Okay, are there any questions or comments on the financial report this evening? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that. And we will move right on to items under finance, beginning with C-78. Are you ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. C-78, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested a total appropriation of $6,501,966 be made to the fiscal year '24 Water Department budget. Same amount to be transferred or to be raised/offset by fiscal year 2024 receipts as authorized by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E. We had a public hearing on this evening, Mr. President. I am in favor of passing this budget, and I ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Cormier.
I agree.
Councilor Angelini. Okay, so it's unanimous recommendation to grant C-78. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-78 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-78 has been passed. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, ordered the sum of $6,501,966 be made or appropriated to the fiscal year 2024 Water Department budget. Same amount to be raised, offset by fiscal 2024 receipts as authorized by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order signify by saying yea.
Yea.
Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-78's order has been adopted. C-79.
C-79, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested a total appropriation of $6,613,919 be made to the fiscal year '24 Sewer Department budget, the same amount to be raised, offset by fiscal year '24 receipts, as authorized by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E. Again, we had a public hearing on this earlier this evening. Jake Fleming from the Water Department, we are in good stead with business agents from the water and sewer departments in this city. Mr. Brooks before him and Mr. Fleming currently gave us a great presentation. Mr. President, it would be my position to grant C-79. I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Cormier.
I agree.
Councilor Angelini.
I'll make it unanimous, Mr. President.
Okay, it's a unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-79. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-79 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-79 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, ordered that the sum of $6,613,919 be appropriated to the fiscal year 2024 Sewer Department budget, same amount to be raised/offset by fiscal year 2024 receipts as authorized by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order signify by saying yea.
Yea.
Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, the order for C-79 has been adopted. Moving on to C-80.
C-80, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the fiscal year 2024 budget, which totals $161,872,478, be adopted. $161,426,478 to be raised by fiscal year 2024 revenues, $136,000 to be transferred from the Gallagher Building Special Revenue Fund, $60,000 to be transferred from the Cemetery Trust Fund, and $250,000 from the overlay account. Again, Mr. President, we had a public hearing on the budget this evening. Good presentations by our comptroller, school department. in participation of the council, I would ask, I would be in a position to recommend the granting of C-80 and ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Cormier?
I agree.
Councilor Angelini?
I'm in agreement as well.
Okay, you've heard the request, the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-80. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yeah, thank you very much. Through the chair to the finance chair. You know, the public hearing, you closed it so quickly, I had a few more questions for the comptroller. It was about the revenue breakdown that she provided.
I'm not gonna stop that at this point.
You're not going to recess so that I can
No.
ask questions about revenue for the public?
Unless the council wants to, it's up to the council. Is there a motion for recess?
I'll make a motion to recess. If somebody's got a question, I
Okay,
think we should be able to ask
motion
it.
made by Councilor Freitas, seconded by Councilor Shalfo Zephyr. We'll
Thank you.
take a vote. All those in favor of recessing for a couple of quick questions of comptroller signify in the usual manner. Those opposed? Okay, so no one's opposed. Okay, by a vote of 9-0, then we will take a short recess. Would the comptroller come in for a moment?
Yep.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr, you have the floor.
Yep, thank you very much. Thank you, John. I had asked about the various revenue sources, and I was looking specifically not for the budgets, but for actuals. And you provided those, which was very helpful for fiscal '22. So I just had a couple of questions. In looking at the FY '22 that we have the actuals for, there is, under other financing sources, there's a transfers in line, and the actual amount was $6,961,734. Can you tell me what that is? I was looking for a breakdown of that.
Oh, it's many, that's all of the transfers that come in through the general fund throughout the year. So that would be, 4.7 million of it is gonna be stabilization, because that's the amount that we transferred back to stabilization. All of the other council orders that we go through throughout the year, and we appropriate money from stabilization into the general fund, that's gonna be included in that number.
Okay, got it. It's not broken down underneath. Okay, so so in the budget, it's broken down underneath, is that right? But then in the
That's the use
actuals.
of free cash, so the use of free cash, so we use free cash and we replace the money that we put back in stabilization, so that's how I can pick that number out right away. So that's the amount that was transferred in as well. And the rest is gonna be all the various council orders that come in. We have some that come from the Gallagher Building, and water and sewer. The closeouts are going to be in there for the end of the year, and those are gonna be the three main items. It's gonna be the stabilization, water and sewer transfer at the end of the year, and then any other miscellaneous transfers that we get from the trust funds, Gallagher Building, other items like that.
So those are all additional revenue sources,
Yes.
a variety of them. Okay. Ambulance revenue, in this budget, because it should be in the next year's budget, where is that accounted for?
In this year's budget?
Yeah.
It is in departmental revenue.
Okay, that's what I thought. And then how about COVID money and all of the ARPA funds? Where would those be accounted for?
Those are a grant. They're not part of the.
They're not part of the general revenue?
Nope.
Okay. COVID funds, no actuals, okay. I just want to make sure, I think that's it, thank you. I just was confused about the transfers in.
Oh, yep. No,
Thank you.
No problem.
Any other
Thank you.
questions for the comptroller while we're in recess? Are we good? All set, thank you very much. We are
you.
now back in session, and we are back to discussion on C-80. Is there anyone else with any discussion? I just want to, before we take a vote, as usual, I just need to make it clear that I am abstaining from all items associated with the fire department's salary and wages and benefits. I do have an immediate family member. My brother does serve on the fire department, and I'm required to abstain. And also any items associated with the Disability Commission. I serve on the Disability Commission, and I'm the treasurer, so I am also required to abstain from those items as well. I cannot wear both hats. Is there anybody else that has any discussion or has any conflicts that they need to declare and make an abstention from? Councilor Deacon? Okay, you'll be abstaining from school department salaries and wages and benefits, okay? You have a family member, correct? For the record, you have a family member? Okay, all right, and Counselor Shalfo Zephyr.
Both the finance chair and I, we serve as trustees on the library board, but I don't think that's a conflict.
I've checked that with ethics in the past. It's
So
not
we're
a
fine.
conflict.
All righty, thank you, that's it.
You're welcome. Okay. Is there any other discussion? Counselor Frida?
Yeah, I think it's important. We go through this every year. For 30 years we've been going through this that I can remember, and it still doesn't really sink in. As we know, there is nobody here tonight except Gary Zimmerman, who religiously shows up. But we're not going to hear about this budget until October and November, when the tax rate is set. That's when everybody's going to start yelling about us, who does not set the budget, set the tax rate, but they're going to look at us because we set the classification. This is important tonight. If people had questions or concerns about this budget, tonight would have been the night for people to be here, whether it's schools, whether it's fire, police, DPW. This is when the questions should be asked, because once we vote tonight, knowing that we need certain things in this city to continue servicing it the way we do, once this is set, that gives the assessor's office the ability to set the tax rate. And DOR looks at it, and it just moves forward. So it's important to know that this is what's going to drive the tax rate. So I say it every year, and it's like, doesn't get anywhere, but it'll be there in October and November. So I've got to rehearse. I just had to say it again for 30 years, so.
Just like
Thank you.
daylight savings time, comes every year.
Hopefully not next year. If Congress acts.
I'm waiting for the year it goes down in October, November, and then it'll be a.
Okay, is there any other discussion on C-80? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-80 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-80 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
I do order that the sum of $161,872,478, as well as, well, I'm not going to do the breakdown, be appropriated to the fiscal year 2024 budget. $161,872,478 from general revenues, $136,000 from the Gallagher Building Special Revenue Fund, $60,000 to be transferred from the Cemetery Trust Fund, and $250,000 to be transferred from the overlay account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order signify by saying yea.
Yay.
Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, the order for C-80 has also been adopted. Moving on to more items into finance. There are many this evening. C-66, Mr. Chairman, you ready to report?
C-66, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request to authorize the City of Leominster to pursue $253,000 through the State Department of Environmental Protection. This is a grant program that's sponsored by Mass DEP for lead service lining program to line public water supply pipes that are made of lead or copper. We had a subcommittee meeting on this, Mr. President, and it was a unanimous position of the Finance Committee to grant C-66. I'd ask you, sorry.
Okay. Okay, so the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee was to grant C-66. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-66 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-66 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Does this require an order? I mean, we're authorizing the mayor to apply for the money.
No, it's
There-
just
there
the
is-
grant.
Right, so do we need an order?
No.
I don't think so.
So there is no order. Thank you very much for pointing that out, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to C-68, ready to report.
C-68, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that an appropriation of $17,406.50 be made to the Police Department Bulletproof Vests account, the same to be transferred from the Excess and Deficiency account. This is to enable the Chief of Police to buy some protective equipment for his department. Again, the subcommittee met and unanimously endorsed this, Mr. President.
Okay, so you've heard the recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-68. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-68 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-68 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Ordered that the sum of $17,406.50 be appropriated to the Police Department Bulletproof Vest Account, same to be transferred from the Excess and Efficiency Account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order signify by saying yea.
Yea.
Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, the order for C-68 has been adopted. C-69.
C-69, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an appropriation of $250,000 be made to the Fire Department Public Safety Overtime Account, the same to be transferred from the Excess and Deficiency Account. There's a letter from the Fire Chief.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to ask that I'm going to recuse myself from this. I'm going to hand the chair to the Vice President for a
Okay.
moment.
Thank you, Mr.
very much.
President. Madam Acting President, we have a letter from the Fire Department. This is from a number of sources, including overtime costs resulting from duty injury, vacancies, military activation drills, recalls for residential fires, mutual aid, renovations to the headquarters at 210 Lancaster Street for the new dispatch center, and paramedic overtime. Again, the subcommittee met a week ago and unanimously endorsed this particular communication. And I'll leave it to you. Take a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-69. All those in favor, please signify in the usual manner. Opposed? By a vote of 8-0. And, Mr. Chair, do you have an order?
I do. Order the sum of $250,000 be appropriated to the Fire Department Public Safety Overtime Account, same amount to be transferred from the Excess and Deficiency Account. Move for the adoption of the order.
For the request for the adoption of the order, all those in favor, I'm sorry, I should go, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please recognize by saying yea.
Yea.
Opposed? By a vote of 8-0, the order has been granted. Back
Thank
to
you very
Mr.
much.
President.
Moving on
Thank you,
to
Madam Vice President.
C-70. Mr. Chairman, are you ready to report?
Yes, C-70, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $30,000 be transferred to the library's operating account, same to be transferred from the following accounts: clerks, $14,000, part-time staff, $12,000, librarians, $4,000, for a total of $30,000. This essentially is, there's overfunded accounts at the library on the personnel side, and this is going to be used to meet our minimum purchase requirements from the Massachusetts Library Commissioners for materials, books principally. And the subcommittee met and unanimously endorsed this one as well.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-70. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-70 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-70 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Ordered that sum of $30,000 be appropriated to the library operating account, same to be transferred from three line items in the personnel side: clerks, $14,000, part-time staff, $12,000, librarians, $4,000. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order signify by saying yea.
Yea.
Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, the order for C-70 has been adopted. C-71.
C-71, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an appropriation of $118,572.05 be transferred from the Snow and Ice Overtime Account to the Snow and Ice Expense Account. Every year, we pretty much overspend this account. We are, by state law, permitted to spend into deficit, but of course, we have to make it up. So the subcommittee met on this and unanimously endorsed this one as well.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-71. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-71 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-71 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Ordered that the sum of $118,572.05 be appropriated to the Snow and Ice Overtime Account, same to be transferred from the Snow and Ice Expense Account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order signify by saying yea.
Yea.
Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, the order for C-71 has been adopted. C-72.
C-72, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $97,079.62 be made to the snow and ice account, same to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. This is for contractors who plow for the city. Again, a shortfall in the budget for the season just ended. This one is coming out of the stabilization account. Again, the subcommittee met, Mr. President, and unanimously endorsed this communication as well.
You've heard the unanimous request of the Finance Committee to grant C-72. Is there any discussion? Councilor Frida?
Through the chair to the finance chair, did you say this was coming out of stabilization?
Yes,
It says free cash.
this is the same thing, right?
Huh?
It's, well,
Excess and deficiency.
sorry,
It's-
you're correct.
it's free.
It's coming out of excess and deficiency. We have.
Oh, okay,
you're-
so
yeah,
it's
you're
not a
right.
two-thirds vote then?
No,
Okay.
I misspoke.
Is there any other discussion? Thank you very much. Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-72 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-72 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Order that the sum of $97,079.62 be appropriated to the snow and ice account, same to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order signify by saying yea.
Yea.
Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, the order for C-72 has been adopted. C-73.
C-73, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $23,075 be made to the street signs and fences account, same to be transferred from the excess and efficiency account. We have a letter from the DPW director. This is repairing a lot of guardrails, a lot of them on French Hill and some other street signage around the city. Again, the subcommittee met on this and unanimously endorsed this communication as well.
Okay, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-73. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-73 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-73 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Order that the sum of $23,075 be appropriated to the street signs and fences account, same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order signify by saying yea.
Yea.
Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, the order for C-73 has been adopted. Now, on the next three, C-74, C-76, and C-75, you're going to notice that their numbers are out of order. I had asked the city clerk to resequence them because there was a point made about we got to establish the fund before we can appropriate money to it. And the fault is mine. I had asked her to flip-flop to move the wrong two around. So in any event, very simple. If there's no objection, we're just going to take C-76 first, then C-75 second, and then C-74 third, and that will fix the problem. So, Councilor Frida.
Mr. President, before we get into that, I hate to do this again, but I have a couple of questions about the account itself. And could we recess to have Jen come in? It wasn't appropriate to ask her before.
So moved.
Sure, okay. So Councilor Frida made the motion, Councilor Bedanza seconded. All those in favor going to recess signify in the usual manner. Those opposed by a vote of 9-0. We now stand in recess once again. With the Comptroller, Ms. Reddington, please come in again briefly. Thank you very much, by the way, for being here this evening. It's a busy night, obviously, for finance, so your expertise is much appreciated. Councilor Frida, the floor is yours.
Jen, thank you. I'm just curious. I've been involved in some of the following the Attorney General's lawsuit back in the day, and worked on the opioid fund and wrote a program actually back on a task force in 2014 on opioid addiction. The from what I can gather, and I don't know if I have the numbers right, and I don't know if you have them, and I know it's short notice, but I just looked over the weekend. So if you don't, I understand that. My calculation, and this goes to 2034, if I'm correct.
Yep.
That we'll
I
be
don't know the
getting.
exact date, but it does go out to several years.
Right.
Yep.
Right, and it's, every year we're gonna get, however it's set up, and there's so many different, I mean, there's J&J, there's,
Right. We're gonna get X amount of dollars for the next 10 or so years, yeah.
right, and there's a different number from J&J, there's a different number from CVS, there's a number from Walmart, there's a number from Walgreens.
Yes.
There's a number from like about 9 different.
Thankfully, it all comes to us in just one amount.
Right, exactly, yeah, and it comes to, so my calculation, just quickly looking at it, it looks like we're gonna get at least $1 million
I think
in
so,
that
yeah.
timeframe.
I don't have
Is
the,
that-
like you said, I don't have the exact amounts, but I do believe it is around there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so do we know what we're gonna do with with these funds? I know some of the small towns, like Gardner, for instance, didn't get a lot of money, or they're not getting a lot of money.
Yeah.
So they're partnering with some of the towns around them to hire a clinician. That seems to be a huge piece that seems to be missing from some of the communities. So they're looking to have a clinician involved. Do we know are there any suggestions or any discussion about what to do with this money yet?
I don't, and I'm not a part of the people who do make the decisions for the fund. I was just in the financial end, and it probably got held up a little bit because I'm sure you've been following that this was supposed to be voted 3 times as a revolving fund, and it didn't get passed. It was an add-on to, the bills, and the bill didn't pass. So that's why this is before you as a stabilization fund, because if we don't create a stabilization fund now, they want everything to close to the general fund,
Right.
and then you can't reserve it in the general fund. It closes to your free cash, and then you have to. So that's why we are establishing a stabilization fund. We're using our free cash and this is the same amount that we've already received. So this will be it'll be moved into this fund, so it's gonna establish the fund. The actual dollars that we have, they'll close to free cash just like they're supposed to, because they'll be but we'll be all set going forward. These revenues that are gonna come in, we're gonna set up the revenue stream so that 100% will go right into that fund, and then going forward, we'll have the availability to just, send down an appropriation for whatever, the deemed services or, expenses are going to be in the fund. Right now, it's kind of in a holding pattern because you had to wait till, you couldn't spend them until they were in your free cash, and then you could appropriate them after. So it's made it a little difficult to spend these funds.
Right.
So, if there is a plan, I'm sure they're working on one because they do know the funds are coming in, but it's been, they're not really available yet, so.
And I didn't think that you would have the answer to that, so I apologize for asking that question. I just thought maybe if there was a conversation, you'd have an idea, and again, I just looked at everything over the weekend to try to calculate what we're getting with
Yeah.
nine different disbursements from 9 different pharmaceutical companies, so, in a way, we're fortunate that we're getting a lot of money from this opioid settlement, but by the same token, I know we're getting some of it because we have a hospital in our community, so we're getting more money, kind of unfairly labeled, because all the opioid deaths aren't related to Leominster itself, it's from some of the other communities. So while it's good to be getting the extra money, that kind of has to be understood a little bit as well. Because if somebody were to look at Fitchburg and look at Leominster and we're getting more money, which kind of implies that we have a bigger problem, we don't know, but I don't think we have that, that larger problem. I think a lot of it is because of the hospital being in our community, so. And I agree with the stabilization account, because it would have affected our tax rate if it stayed in the general fund, and that's really not appropriate for the use of the money that is very specific.
Well, that's the thing too. They did not remove the clause that it has to be spent on specific items, but yet they're closing it to the general fund, so they made it very hard on the accounting side.
I agree. Okay, so I'm not far off. We're at least $1 million down the road. I know we're at least $1 million, so, maybe we can get a better number altogether when,
Yeah, I believe there is a whole spreadsheet that maps out our payments over the next years, and tells us what we're going to be receiving.
right,
Yeah.
and there were a couple of years in there, we're gonna get a $500,000, I think,
I don't remember.
or 2 or 3, maybe not, maybe 200,000 or 300,000. With some, they're also broken up, that it's difficult to
Yeah.
pin that number, and one's 1 month, another one's another month.
I think
Some
they
of them-
tried to level, the sheet that I saw, I think they were level funded, so then maybe they tried to spread it out over, but I'm not sure. We can get the
Yeah, I think
spreadsheet.
there were different times of the year that they were coming out. They're all different.
Yeah,
All the different, I don't think it was just us. I think everybody, CVS said, this is when we're gonna pay it. This is how much we're gonna pay now, and this is how much we're gonna pay in the future. And I think all the communities were gonna be the same way. It wasn't
Yeah.
just us, so.
yeah. Okay,
All right, thank you for answering that for me.
no problem.
Counselor Angelini, did I
If
see your
may
hand
just
too?
add, I did some research on this a couple weeks ago, and I think one of the reasons this is so convoluted right now is because all the defendants, and some of them were named earlier, and I don't want to name them in case I name one that wasn't a defendant, but some of them, the payments will start this year, some of them go out 5 to 7 or 8 years before they make their initial payment. So I think that's one of the problems that they're wrestling with and how to
Okay.
distribute this money. So-
Yeah, I think that's what I just said. That's why I was asking Jen, when the numbers come out, they're all scattered on when the payments are actually gonna be, so.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the comptroller before we go back into session? Counselor Schaffel-Zephyr?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can answer this, Jen, but I was looking at C-75, which is the mayor requesting the city dedicate all of the opioid settlement receipts to the opioid stabilization fund established under Mass General Law, effective for fiscal '23, beginning on May 3rd, 2023. I'm confused why it's,
It was, I put the date of when I sent the letter down, so we've moved everything over of what we have received as of May 3rd. That's the number that's on the previous page.
Got
So
it.
I just had to have a cutoff, and
Okay.
I was going to put year end, but as luck would have it, we would receive a payment in between May and, June for year end, so that's why I put the date I sent the
As of
letter
May
down.
3rd.
So anything
Okay.
that if this is passed, anything that, it'll just go into the fund.
okay,
I won't have to come back down for another
Thank you.
appropriation.
yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, we all set? Thank you very much. Okay, we are, thank you, I appreciate it. We are now back in session, and I didn't hear any objection about taking these out of order, so Mr. Chairman of Finance, are you ready to report on C-76?
I am, Mr. President. C-76, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request that an opioid stabilization fund be established to account for the opioid settlement receipts that the city is receiving under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, as we heard from the comptroller. We're already in receipt of some of this money, and there will be more coming. This account is necessary to manage the money that we have and the money that we will receive. It would be my position, unanimous position of the committee, subcommittee, to grant C-76, Mr. President.
Okay, you've heard the request from the Finance Committee to grant C-76. Is there any discussion? Council Frida?
Yeah, just a note, I made a point at the Finance Committee meeting, this is not a majority vote, it's a 2/3 vote to establish stabilization account.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that. Is there any other discussion on C-76? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-76 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-76 has been granted. C-75, Mr. Chairman.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the city dedicate all of the opioid settlement receipts of to the opioid stabilization fund established under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, effective for fiscal year '23, beginning on May 3rd, 2023. So this is sort of step 2 in the process. So this vote would suggest that all future payments would be placed in the account that we just established. And again, it was unanimous position of the Finance Subcommittee to grant C-75.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-75. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-75 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed by a vote of 9-0, C-75 has been granted. C-74.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the third prong of this, C-74. Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an appropriation of $349,430.37 be made to the opioid stabilization fund, same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account, and as presented by our comptroller just a few moments ago, this is basically an accounting move to take the money out of our free cash and put it in the aforementioned established account that just was created a few minutes ago. And again, it was the unanimous position of the subcommittee to grant C-74.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-74. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-74 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed by a vote of 9-0, C-74 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Ordered that the sum of $349,430.37 be appropriated to the opioid stabilization fund, the same amount to be transferred from the excess deficiency account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order signify by saying yea.
Yea. Yea.
Those opposed by a vote of 9-0, the order for C-74 has been adopted. Moving on to C-81.
C-81, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $103,590 be made to the Police Department Replacement Equipment Account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. This is to acquire equipment for our new recruits to the academy. Kind of exciting that we have a potential adding some new officers, and the chief needs this money in order to assist that process. Again, the subcommittee met and unanimously endorsed C-81.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous request from the Finance Committee to grant C-81. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-81, please signify in the usual manner. Those opposed by a vote of 9-0, C-81 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Order that the sum of $103,590 be transferred or be appropriated to the Police Department Replacement Equipment Account, the same to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order, please signify by saying yea.
Yea.
Those opposed by a vote of 9-0, the order for C-81 has been adopted. Moving on to the, by the way, thank you very much, Finance Committee. Very busy meeting of the year, very busy time of the year, and a lot of work put into this, so thank you all very much. Moving on to the one item under Legal Affairs, 42-23. Mr. Chimney, ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. 42-23, David R. Cormier, Ward 3 Councilor, requests to rename the most northerly portion of Montrose Street between Richard Road and Sawtell Road to Karozowitz Lane. I know this has been kicking around for a while, as we were waiting for some kind of documents that had clouded this. Let me refer this to the petitioner for some clarity.
I'll just be very brief. I was waiting for this road to be fully accepted, and there was just a document recorded on this back in March, and I believe that everything is fully recorded legally. We legally own the road, and it's recorded properly now. There was an issue with one of the certificates of clerk that was recorded. And back when we had originally voted to accept these roads, I had pointed out that this portion of Montrose Street appears that it will forever be secluded from the other, or, not linked to the other portion of Montrose Street, which is a dead end off of Grant. And I had asked if it would be a good idea to probably rename this so that there's no confusion if somebody notices on their GPS, because they're driving down this little strip of road, that they're on Montrose Street and they're trying to call the fire department or anything like that. There'll be no confusion as to what street they're on. So there's a letter attached here. The building department had advised that the next name on the list was Karozowicz, which is a veteran, and the police and fire had no issue with this either. So this is just some housekeeping that I'm asking that we pass. Fortunately, no one, all the condos and homes that are there, none of them use a Montrose Street address for this portion of Montrose Street, so we're not going to have to cause a problem with people changing their address, but we definitely need to redesignate the name of the road and put signs on it so that it's clear what street intersects over there in that development. Okay.
All right, thank you. I know this isn't a public hearing, but is there anyone in attendance that would like to weigh in on this petition? 4223? Seeing no one. Mr. Chairman, in light of your explanation, would be my recommendation that we grant 42-23, and I would ask you to check with members of my committee.
Council Bedanza
I'm in favor.
and Councilor Deacon.
I'm in agreement.
Okay, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant 42-23. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting 42-23 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed by a vote of 9-0, 42-23 has been granted. And Madam Clerk, I will ask for a couple of things. Can you notify the DPW for signage? The assessor's office, if you can officially send them a letter of our vote tonight so they can update the GIS maps, so that will appear. And I find that when they update those maps, it updates other GPS software that floats around out in the world, so that because they sometimes mimic it, I think. So that might clear some of that up, as well as the police department, fire department, for any potential future, if anybody tries to use that section of road with an address, and also the building department, everybody's aware of it, okay? Otherwise, it shouldn't have any other effect on anybody else. So, thank you very much. Moving on to C-67. Mr. Chairman of the City Property Committee, you ready to report?
I am. C-67, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the City Council of the City of Leominster, on behalf of the city and by virtue of and acting pursuant to Chapter 82, Section 21 of the Mass General Laws, hereby discontinues a portion of Pioneer Drive Extension as a public way. The portion discontinued by this vote is shown as proposed Lot 2, containing approximately 5,474 square feet on a plan entitled Plan of Land Orchard Hill Park Drive Extension, dated February 13th, 2023, prepared by Control Point Associates Incorporated, 3 sheets, recorded in the Worcester Northern District Registry of Deeds and Plan Book 536, page 18, which discontinuance does not release the shoreline easement that the city has in proposed Lot 2, and further, to transfer said proposed Lot 2 from the City Council for public way purposes to the mayor for general municipal purposes, and for the purpose of conveyance, and to authorize the mayor to convey said proposed Lot 2 on such terms and conditions, and for such consideration as the mayor deems appropriate. So, this basically is some housekeeping. It's a 5,000 square foot piece of land that the developer had given to the city. It's not used, it's to clean up some property lines. I'm in favor of that, and I would ask the president to check with Councilor Deacon and Councilor Frida.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Councilor Deacon, are you in accord?
Yes, I'm in agreement, thank you.
And Councilor Frida?
I agree.
Okay, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the City Property Committee to grant C-67. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-67 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed by a vote of 9-0, C-67 has been granted. Moving on to items under Ways and Means. 38-23, Madam Chairwoman, are you ready to report?
I am, thank you, Mr. President. 38-23 North Central Mass Launch LLC, doing business as Launch Leominster, request a bowling alley license for Launch Leominster, 118 Commercial Road in Leominster, Mass. We had a public hearing earlier this evening. Mr. Emma was present here. This is his property. And I have to say that the question did come up that the facility was allowed to open, and realizing after they opened that they required a bowling alley license. I want to thank the clerk for actually going there with her child and realizing that and moving almost immediately to to correct the situation, she contacted Mr. Emma. He did submit the proper application, the supporting documentation, the certificate of liability insurance. He is up and running, and as I said, I don't think this is anything that's going to slip past the building department or the clerk's office again, as this is a very specific permit application for a license for a bowling alley, not that they come up very often. So having him corrected everything, fulfilled all the paperwork and everything we need, it would be my recommendation that we grant and issue the license for the bowling alley. And I'd ask you to check with the members of my committee.
Counselor Arndinger?
I agree.
Counselor Shalfo-Zephyr?
I agree as well.
Okay, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to grant 38-23. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting 38-23 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, 38-23 has been granted. Moving on to 43-23.
43-23, Paul's Tools request a renewal license to deal secondhand articles at 345 Central Street in Leominster, Mass. Again, I have reviewed the application. I find it to be in good standing with all the supporting documentation, and it would be my position to grant this, and I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Counselor Arndinger?
I agree.
Counselor Shalfo-Zephyr?
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to grant 43-23. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting 43-23 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, 43-23 has been granted. 44-23.
44-33, Eco ATM LLC, request to renew license to deal secondhand articles, 11 Jungle Road, Leominster, Mass. Again, they have a completed application. All the supporting documentations are in place. It would be my position to grant 44-23.
Okay, Counselor Arndinger?
I agree.
Counselor Shalfo-Zephyr?
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation to grant 44-23. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting 44-23 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, 44-23 has been granted. And last but not least, C-77.
Thank you, Mr. President. C-77, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that Joan Kelly be exempt from the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20B, Conflict of Interest. We've received a letter from the mayor's office dated May 3rd, which attached with that was a disclosure of financial interest by a municipal employee. And just a repeat of what I just previously read under C-77. The letter from the Leominster Recreation Department dated April 21st, 2023, to Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor. Dear Mayor, the Leominster Rec Department wishes to hire Joan Kelly, a crossing guard for the City of Leominster School Department, to work as a gate attendant at the state pool. Writing to request approval by the City Council to exempt Joan from a conflict of interest as provided for in Mass General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20B. The two jobs do not conflict with the present job requirements. Joan Kelly will also submit a disclosure, which she has submitted, and I'm not going to read into the record, but it's submitted with the application. This comes up every so often with the city, and we have someone who is fulfilling one position and would like to take another for over the summer. It would be my position to grant C-77, and I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Counselor Arndinger?
I agree.
Counselor Shalfo-Zephyr?
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to grant C-77. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-77 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-77 has been granted. Moving on to items under new, oh, sorry, Counselor Frida?
Did we miss 43-23, or did I just miss it?
No, we did it.
No, we did it.
We did it?
We
All
did
right.
it. We did it.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. All right, we have new business. We have one first reading of an ordinance which is formally petition C-60, although I know the chairman of Legal Affairs tried, the city clerk tried, and I even tried calling Brian Riley today. I don't believe we have this back. The mayor called, and so I'm just going to ask, briefly, we're at a point where we'd have to re-advertise a public hearing. Is there any way, if the will of the council is, I'm just trying to save us some steps. If we vote on the first reading tonight without it back, is that permissible? And then if there is any provided we get something back over the next 3 weeks, if there's any problems, we can amend it or scrap the second reading? I'm just trying to save us from having to go through all this hearing process again.
I seem to, as a point of order, I seem to remember that the reading process technically isn't part of the passage. It's something we've done as a council forever, and it's custom, but I don't think it's required for the passage of the ordinance. When is
Madam
the
Clerk.
time limit?
The time limit's 90 days.
When does that fall?
That's gonna fall in between now and our next meeting in June.
Could do a special, we have a lot of time between the two meetings, that we could
Right,
do a
it's
special meeting
It's a 3-week
potentially.
break, you know?
Or, I mean, based on how I understand how these readings work, I wouldn't necessarily have an objection with that, but you can check with the tenor of the council on it.
As long as, Madam Clerk, as long as there's no problems with that
So-
procedurally, that's my concern.
Legally,
If you wanna
what
weigh
our
in.
charter requires us to do in section 3 is we have to have a public hearing for an ordinance change, which we had on the proposed language. Then the language gets drafted, and then we have to have it published in full, but at the end of its lifespan. So we don't have to have the readings. We've customarily had the readings historically for as long as I can go back. But what the charter requires, and I've had this discussion with Brian Riley previously, is similar to a bond. 7-day notice in the newspaper, which counts as its first reading technically by law. And then one more time being published in full in its ordinance form in the paper after its passage, within 7 days after it's finally out of council.
Okay.
So depending on how you would,
So procedurally, we could move forward on the first reading tonight, even though we don't have it back?
yes.
Or we can hold off, and we can have to republish, re-advertise, have a whole nother public hearing, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that's where we stand procedurally. I'm gonna pass this to the chairman of legal affairs, and he and his committee and the council as a whole can decide what they wanna do. So, Mr. Chairman, are you ready to report?
Well, I'm quite comfortable with moving on the first reading, and then between now and our next meeting, hopefully obtaining a formal ordinance form from KP Law, and we could and then have the second reading. Unfortunately, unless the clerk has the document, I wasn't expecting to move on this because, as you said, we didn't have it back from KP Law. So all I have is, in front of me
Yes.
is what's on our agenda.
Right. Okay,
So-
so what is your recommendation? What do you wanna do with this? What do you feel comfortable with?
Well, like I said, I'd like to move, the only other option we have, obviously, is if we receive the ordinance, we knew the exact date, if we get it back in ordinance form, we could ask for a special, we'd have to still have it, we have time for a special meeting to deal with that one item.
We could technically have a special before we have our regular meeting and have 2 readings that way.
I have
Because this is
a
supposed.
suggestion.
Okay, Council Bonanza?
My suggestion would be we pass it. I mean, look it's a chart, in essence, with salary levels and amounts. I mean, I don't know what's gonna change, when he turns it into ordinance form, and I don't understand the delay. My suggestion is we pass it, at the same time, we ask him for an opinion, that what we did complies procedurally, and we move on.
And if it doesn't, we'll re-advertise the
Exactly.
hearing, that's all.
Exactly.
So as the second member, your recommendation is to grant?
Yep.
Okay, and Councilor Deacon? To grant it. Okay, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee that we are going to go ahead and grant the first reading of this ordinance, which is formally petition C-60. Is there any discussion? Councilor Frida?
I certainly agree with the premise of the point of what we're doing here, but that's going down a slippery slope to start disregarding some of the process. I know it's not a big deal, but I'm not so sure we should be doing that. I mean, we don't have our legal opinion back, we don't have the reading back yet. I don't think we should be doing this. I'm not comfortable with it. We just had somebody in the podium tonight talking about the salaries, talking about the wages. I mean, I think we should do this the right way. Even if it's a little painful, I still think we should follow the process the way it's supposed to go.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Councilor Schaffler-Zephyr?
Yeah, thank you very much. We would be adopting the first reading of an ordinance, but we don't have the ordinance in front of us. So I'm not comfortable adopting an ordinance that I don't have.
Okay.
Mr. President? I'm sorry.
Oh, I think I saw Councilor Angelini's hand, and then Councilor
I was
Bedanza.
going to take the opposite position of the at-large counsel. I was thinking of the gentleman that spoke before us this evening, too, and he was saying, here they are, we're going to re-advertise. It's going to cost us more money only because a law firm didn't get back to us with the thing in ordinance form. So I think I agree, for a different reason, that this is kind of an aggravating thing for someone to be watching. We have to repeat this entire process. We're exposed to more fees for advertising, and, we don't really know when we're gonna get this thing. So, the only other thing we could do again is postpone, give further time and hope that we get something back, and then try to have a special meeting, but.
The last I
We'd have to
heard.
have two
Mr.
special
President.
meetings,
Mr. President,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
I just wanted
Councilor
to
Brady?
absolutely agree with you, and I think any and all charges because of this gets billed directly to the law firm, and we don't pay for it again. This is directly on them.
I was thinking the same thing, Councilor Brady. I was going to suggest that as well, that if we incur more advertising, maybe we should, certainly the chief executive of the city should be talking to them about a reimbursement. Councilor Bedanza?
We'd have to, just a fact check, we'd have to have two special meetings before the next meeting, right?
If we end up advertising it and to get it done before the fiscal year because of the budget, yes.
Well, but we need to do it before the 90 days, and the 90 days falls sometime between now and the first meeting in June?
Correct.
So in order to get two readings in, we'd have to have two special meetings.
We could do them.
It's gonna hit June 5th.
We'd have to have two special meetings before June 5th.
If we don't do anything tonight.
Right.
Right,
Or alternatively, we start over again.
right. We're on a
And this has
tight-
got to get passed before the end of the fiscal year, right? So how are we
Yes.
going to do that if we
Supposed
start over again?
We got told, what, July 1?
Right, but if we start over again, we got to have a public hearing. We have to have a vote, and then we have to have two readings after that. Unless we use special meetings, we're not going to be able, we won't make it, even if we start over. It's
Right.
a real conundrum.
It is, and
Yeah, yeah.
none of this is our fault.
No.
No.
That's
The
it.
Not
the
that
last
wanna
I heard
point
from Brian
fingers, but
last
no.
week, when I poked him again, he was still trying to copy and paste the information into the form.
Oh, jeez.
How difficult is it to copy and paste?
Yeah.
I mean, he's not writing the ordinance. I mean, that's kind of a poor excuse.
Call, an email, nothing.
No,
And-
I've
and-
poked the mayor's office multiple times. They poked him. I've poked him via email. Dean called him today because I got a hold of him. Pete called him.
So if we went with my suggested process, we would still have to have a special meeting
Yes.
to make it before June 5th for the second meeting, right?
Yes.
I recognize the uneasiness of my fellow councilors about this, but given all of the alternatives, I still stick with my proposition.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Councilor Angelini?
I'm going to agree with my colleague and committee member, the Ward 4 councilor, and move forward. If the city solicitor rules that we're out of line doing this, then we're basically going to revert back to the only other alternative
It's gotta be
we have to
scrapped.
begin with anyway.
Got to be
Yep.
scrapped and we got to start over. Either way, if we don't move, we're going to have to do that anyway, so, Is there any other discussion? Okay, well, I'm going to do this in a roll call vote. Once again, the recommendation on the floor from the Legal Affairs Committee is to grant the first reading of this ordinance, formally petition C-60.
Read what I have.
If you'd like to, I'm sorry?
I have the matrix that he's copied and pasted.
Yeah, do we have to read all that into the record? Should we read all that?
We're literally not gonna read it when it's done either.
Or we can wait till the second reading to make sure that it's, to make sure that it's.
The full ordinance from the attorney would have to be read into the record, right?
No, we never do that. We summarize it.
Multiple people. We usually
He's already opined on that. He says we don't have to do that.
So he'd read in typically the be ordained and then the striking of chapter 16, section,
And replace with
whatever,
the new.
the chart, and replace with the following chart.
Why don't you read that, Counselor?
He doesn't have it.
I have it.
He's got that part.
No, all I have is what's on the agenda.
You have it?
Clerk has
Okay,
it. She can read
Madam
it.
Clerk, do you want to read that into the record
Sure.
before we take a vote?
So it's gonna be under chapter 16, that's being replaced under salaries and wages, it's our table. And what will happen is the table will be fiscal year 24. Step 1, minimum 34,235. Step 2, 35,607. Step 3, 37,032. Mid, 38,510. Step 4, 40,050. Step 5, 41,660. Step 6, 43,318. Max, 44,187. Step 2 will be 38,346 for the minimum, and these all go from minimum to max at year 7. Then 39,877, 41,474, 43,135, 44,855, 46,653, 48,518, 49,494. Step 3, 42,945 at base, 44,664 at next step, 46,448, 48,311, 50,241, 52,255, 54,342, ending at 55,428. Step 4 at base, 48,102, 50,026, 52,028, 54,103, 56,268, 58,520, 60,859, ending at 62,075. Step 5 at base, 53,874, 56,029, 58,265, 60,599, 63,019, 65,541, 68,161, 69,527 at end. S6, 60,336, 62,748, 65,264, 67,868, 70,584, 73,407, 76,345, ending at 77,874 max. Step 8, did I do 7? 87,000, yes I did. Step 8, 75,685, 78,714, 81,860, 85,138, 88,542, 92,079, 95,767, ending at 97,678. Step 9 starts at 84,766, 88,158, 91,684, 95,348, 99,169, 103,133, 107,256, ending at 109,399. S10, which is where it would stop previously, but we're going to be adding one more tier, which is coming up next. It starts at 94,757, 98,736, 102,685, 106,793, 111,067, 115,506, 120,127, ending at a cap of 122,529. New step S11, which is the new one that's being added in, is starting at 106,128, 110,584, 115, $7, 119, $608, 124,395, 129,366, 134,542, ending at a cap of 137,232, and to also replace the following classification scale with the new administrative assistant is going from an S4 to an S5. Assessor is going from an S8 to an S9. Assistant to the fire chief is going from an S4 to an S6. Assistant to the mayor is coming from an S5 to an S6. Assistant assessor is going from an S8 and staying an S8. Assistant Library Director is going from an S8 to an S9. Assistant Purchasing Agent is going from an S5 to an S7. Building Commissioner is going from an S10 and staying at an S10. Building Custodian 1, Junior Building Custodian, an S1 to an S2. Building Custodian 3, Principal Building Custodian, S3, staying S3. Building Inspector, S8, staying an S8. Building Master Craftsman, S5, going to an S7. Building Business Development Coordinator, staying at an S7, no change. Chief Assessor, S10, not changing, staying at an S10. City Clerk at an S10, staying at an S10. City Clerk Assistant, S5, going to an S7. City Comptroller, S10, going to an S11. City Comptroller Financial Assistant, S4, going to an S6. City Comptroller Assistant, S7, going to an S9. City Treasurer Collector Assistant, S6, going to an S7. City Treasurer Collector staying at an S10. Clerk, S1, going to an S3. Code Enforcement Inspector, staying at an S7. Code Enforcer, Department of Public Works, staying at an S7. Conservation Agent, going from an S6 to an S7. Council on Aging Director, S8, going to an S10. Department Assistant, S3, going to an S4. Department Assistant Retirement Board, S3, going to an S4. Dog Officer, staying an S4. Dog Officer Assistant, staying an S2. Domestic Violence Liaison, S6, going to an S7. Economic Development Coordinator, staying at an S7. Election Administrative Assistant, S4, going to an S5. Emergency Management Director, S8, going to an S9. Engineer Aide, S6, going to an S7. Engineer Senior, S8, going to an S9. Fire Alarm Superintendent, S8, and staying at an S8. Food Inspector, going from an S6 to an S7. General Foreman, S8 to an S9. Grant Administrator, S7 to an S8. Health Director, staying at an S10. And Housing Code Inspector from an S5 to an S7.
Okay.
And that is the entire... Oh, no, it's not. I lied to you slightly. There's another piece. Hold on one second so I can get some water. No, I just want to make sure I'm reading that right. Oh, that's the one with edits, and that's the new. Actually, that is actually everything, because what they did is they reclassified the titles, and they changed it to the simplified new form, which is what I just read. And if anybody wants copies of it, I have it available at my office or via email if you want it. But it's all there.
Okay, so that's what's been proposed, that's what needs to be copied and pasted, and has not officially been done yet. Is there any other discussion? Okay, so I'm gonna do a roll call vote to grant the first reading of this ordinance was formally petitioned C-60 based on the recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee. Counselor Bedanza.
Yay.
Counselor Cormier.
Yay.
Counselor Ardinger.
Yay.
Counselor Angelini.
Yay.
Counselor Brady.
Nay.
Counselor Shalfo Zephyr.
Nay.
Counselor Deacon.
Yay.
Counselor Frida.
Nay.
And I will be recorded as yay by a vote of 6-0. I'm sorry.
6-3.
6-3. I'm sorry, 6-3. This first reading of this ordinance has been passed. Madam Clerk, this week, please, if you get in touch with him, make him aware of what went on and let us know ASAP. And if not, then we're gonna have to start all over and re-advertise and go at this all over again. Councilor Frida.
Yeah, I just want to be sure that the minutes reflect the fact that this is not the first reading of the ordinance, because it's not an ordinance. So I want to make sure that that's reflected in the minutes, that it's not an ordinance.
Okay. Are there any other new business to come before the city council? Okay. Any old business to come before the city council? We have a second reading of an ordinance, which is formally petition 35-23. Are you ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. Be it, sorry. In the year 2023, an ordinance, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Leominster as follows, amending Chapter 14 of the revised ordinances entitled Offenses Miscellaneous. Chapter 14, entitled Offenses Miscellaneous, is hereby amended, inserting the following new section. Section 14-22, sale of firearms, rifles, shotguns, machine guns, and ammunition by gun shops, prohibitions and requirements. No permit or certificate shall be issued for a business entity to engage in the commercial sale or transfer of firearms or ammunition or engage in gunsmithing without first obtaining the required licenses from the chief of police. A, prohibitions. 1, gun shops may not be located, A, within 1,000 feet of a school, library, or museum, or B, within 1,000 feet of each other. B, requirements. 1, gun shops are required to A, have and maintain an alarm system and monitoring service that will provide positive notification to the Leominster Police Department of any unauthorized access when no employees are present or during emergency situations. The alarm system, at a minimum, shall cover all doors and windows and have at least one appropriately placed panic button or buttons for emergency purposes, other than on the alarm panel itself. Mr. President, it would be my recommendation that we adopt the second reading of this ordinance, and I would ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Bedanza.
I'm in favor.
Councilor Deacon.
I'm in favor.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to adopt the second reading of this ordinance, formally petition 35-23. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to do this in a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Bedanza.
Yay?
Councilor Cormier?
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger?
Yay.
Councilor Angelini?
Yay.
Councilor Brady?
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yay.
Councilor Deacon?
Yay.
Councilor Frida?
Yay.
And I will be recorded as yay by a vote of 9-0. The second reading of the ordinance on 35-23 has been adopted. Moving on to the second reading of an ordinance, which is formally petition 36-23. Mr. Chimney, ready to report?
I am. In the year 2023, an ordinance, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Leominster as follows, amending Chapter 11 of the revised ordinances entitled Junk and Secondhand Dealers. Chapter 11, entitled Junk and Secondhand Dealers, is hereby amended, inserting the following new section. Section 11-7.1, firearm prohibited. No pawnbroker shall loan money secured by deposit or pledge of a firearm, rifle, shotgun, machine gun, ammunition, gunpowder, or any accessory thereof. No pawnbroker shall hold a license to sell, rent, or lease a firearm, a rifle, shotgun, or machine gun. Mr. President, it would be my recommendation that we adopt the second reading of this ordinance, and I would ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Bedanza?
I'm in favor.
Councilor Deacon?
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to adopt the second reading of this ordinance. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to do this in a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Bedanza.
Yay?
Councilor Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger.
Yay.
Councilor Angelini.
Yay.
Councilor Brady.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Deacon.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
And I will be recorded as yay by a vote of 9-0. The second reading of this ordinance has also been adopted. Is there any other old business to come before the City Council? Councilor Frida.
Yeah, at the last meeting or the meeting before, I requested a discussion with Ray Racine regarding the unaccepted streets being paved. Again, I don't necessarily have an objection, but I think people need to hear how those decisions are made. I don't know how they're made. So Gordy and Ray Racine, I'd like to have them come in. I don't know if we want to do it through the chair of the committee, or if we want to do it at the council. But I would like to have them come in so we can answer the public as to why the streets aren't getting done and how the decisions are made. Just
Sure.
a simple process.
I have no preference as to how it's done. If we want to take a vote of the City Council to bring them in, and if it's in favor, we can set something up at our next meeting. So is there any desire to bring Ray Racine in and anybody else that he chooses or designates to discuss the matter of road paving and the decision process.
I'll move that.
Okay, the motion's been made by Council Frida, seconded by Council Bedanza. Is there any other discussion on this? If not, all those in favor of inviting them in, please signify in usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0. Madam Clerk, if you could send them a communication tomorrow, if they could be here. I'm thinking maybe just about 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the most before our next meeting, which has a light agenda anyway. That'd be great. Is there any other old business come before? Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr.
Yeah, can I add one thing to that? Same people, I'd like to ask them about sidewalks. I've had requests about sidewalks.
Sure, that's all related, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, any other old business? Okay, community calendar. I know that we have the Memorial Day exercises coming up, and I shuffled all kinds of paperwork around, and I do apologize. I don't have the exact times of, I know we're having a White Cross ceremony on Friday evening, which is this coming Friday, May 26th at 6 o'clock, the Veterans Center. This is Veterans Center, 100 West Street, and then the next morning, 7:50, we meet at the Common. Is that correct? Here, we begin at the Common, and then we will move to St. Leo Cemetery, which oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Here we go. 7:50 a.m. assemble at Monument Square. And then from there, we move on to St. Leo Cemetery, which I believe maybe begins at 8:30. 9 o'clock, St. Cecilia's usually. Then we go to the Johnny Rowe Park for probably about 9:30. There's a respite at the at the Franco's. And then the parade usually begins, I think, at 10:30 from Evergreen Cemetery to Carter Park. And then there's a service at Carter Park immediately following. That's all on Memorial Day. So that's a busy morning for all of us. Is there anything else on the community calendar? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr was a first. Councilor Angelini, you want to second that? All those in favor of adjournment signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, we are now adjourned. Thank you all very much.
The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.